Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching first part of What If Hinata Destroyed Sasuke for Naruto after Sasuke Retrieval arc. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
June 15th, 15 AK. Somewhere outside Konoha, as the orange-clad ninja announced, "Sasuke, I have a plan to bring you back this time, you're coming home today." Sasuke grinned at his former teammate's response, saying, "I doubted Lucer you couldn't do it years ago, what makes you sure you can do it now? You're still worthless, you're too slow and I haven't even activated my Sharingan yet, this battle has been a joke." Naruto rushes forward, but stops abruptly when Sasuke grabs his wrist and uses chakra to create the crackling chirps of his assassination technique. "Sharingan or not, I will bring you back one way or another." In his right hand, Naruto swiftly created a blue sphere. Chidori. Rasengan. The fully developed lightning jutsu easily defeated Naruto's hurriedly constructed jutsu. Naruto was forced to the ground after Sasuke shoved the blonde's hand outward and into his chest cavity, causing excruciating pain similar to what happened at the Valley of the End. The fox container reached for his prisoner's chakra and extracted nothing at all. "Goddamn you, fox! What on earth are you doing?" As he collapsed onto his back, he yelled inward and received only silence above him. Sasuke stood grinning broadly as he looked amusedly at his bloody hand. The fallen leaf nin's anguished voice croaked, "Please, Sasuke, don't forget Konoha. They will help you, just go back there and repair your relations with them." Unsheathing his sword, Sasuke stabbed his former teammate in the heart, instantly killing him. "Save it for the other side, moron." Sasuke was thrilled that he had killed his friend, but he felt nothing different. No power had come to him as it should have, no coming back from that one dobi. Before his evil sensei appeared to greet him, Sasuke was beginning to lose his temper. Orochimaru cackled in a voice that makes young boys everywhere gag and duck. "Good, Sasuke-kun. You've done a wonderful job killing your friend. I bet you're dying to feel your increase in strength." "I don't understand, I should feel some sort of power, right?" When Orochimaru removed the curse seal from Sasuke, all of the repressed feelings surfaced, exposing the real Sasuke who was not under the seal's influence. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Sasuke-kun. I forgot to mention you needed to feel remorse for it to work. Let me help you." Sasuke gazed at his blood-stained hands before turning to face the sword protruding from his friend's body. Sasuke was struggling with his newfound sorrow, but he kept his face emotionless. "What the hell have I done? The only person who was willing to be my friend when I was an ass just died by my hand. How could this have happened? If I really wanted him dead, I wouldn't have saved his sorry ass in wave. Alright, snake bastard, why did you do this to me?" Orochimaru prepared his body change jutsu because he needed to transfer quickly before the Uchiha figured out how to use it, and before Sasuke could react, Kabuto jumped into view and performed a paralyzing jutsu. "Oh, but Sasuke-kun, you know why, you're showing it to me right now." "The Mangekyou, my Mangekyou." Sasuke made numerous unsuccessful attempts to break free because, aside from his eyes, he was paralyzed. His eyes were still able to move when his genius nature struck. His weak illusion caused him to flinch, breaking the paralysis. As he focused on Kabuto's eyes, which were hardly in his peripheral vision, the snake Sanin was only eyeing the prize and not listening to what was going on around him. Orochimaru changed into the traitor with the glasses just as the jutsu was cast because Sasuke used Kawarmi and was able to switch himself with Kabuto. On the weakened Kabuto, Orochimaru form, Sasuke spat, "No one steals my body, prick." An angry white-haired toad summoner, Jiraiya of the Legendary Three, yelled as he landed on the battlefield. "Damn you, brat, where are you? You better not be dead or I'll kill you myself." He cut Kabuto, Orochimaru's throat without looking, snatching life from the lifeless body in front of the two dead sound ninjas. Jiraiya noticed Sasuke sitting on the ground and gazing at his hands. "Hey traitor, you coming? We're getting out of here when the shrimp wakes up, or would you rather me drag you to Konoha?" Jiraiya gave him a strange look until he noticed that Sasuke's eyes were not looking at him but rather past him. "I'll come willingly," that was his last wish. When he got there, he turned around to see what he had missed. A sword still protruding from his heart, lying on the ground in a red and orange mess. "I was still under Orochimaru's curse and I had no idea I was killing one of my only friends until he released the seal. I want to go to Konoha. Hopefully I'll be executed when I arrive." While Jiraiya was compelled to clean up the mess and burn the traitors' bodies, he would have burned his students, but he thought some villagers would want to say goodbye in their own way. Sasuke stood and began to walk toward the village as the Hokage wrapped a cloth around his pupil and carried him to Konoha. Jiraiya called forth a smaller toad to collect the personal belongings they had left behind and deliver them to him. "If you are considering leaving because of Naruto's death, please don't. There is a lot more here, take a look at the underside. Konoha, June 16. Mid-morning, 015 ACT shortly after Tsunade, the 5th Hokage, and her apprentice Haruno Sakura arrived at the same spot. A group of Anbu were observed racing to the eastern gate of Konoha upon hearing of Jiraiya's return. The toad moved swiftly. Ironically, there were other leaf ninjas waiting at the gate before the Hokage. A pale-eyed girl on her daily stop might be waiting to see her blonde crush if he were to return at that time, if you were to look closely behind the closest tree. After 5 minutes, the gates opened, revealing a dark-haired young man approaching the open gate and a white-haired Sannin holding an orange bundle, while Hinata felt a hollow sickness rising inside when she saw the orange object being carried rather than walking. Sakura began to smile as her gaze never left the dark-haired man's face. Sakura rushed to the Uchiha as soon as the travelers entered the gates. Still grinning, she yelled, "Sasuke-kun," and seized him in a cozy embrace. In a dry tone, Sasuke said, "Hi Sakura." He was attempting to be kind but not too much. Tsunade was examining Jiraiya and the bundle he was carrying while Sakura ran to her crush when she discovered there was no life in the body he carried. She stayed motionless and emotionless when Tsunade heard a voice behind her. She jolted out of her reverie. Hinata cried out, "Naruto-kun," as she ran toward them, tears streaming down her cheeks, only to be embraced by the Hokage. Tsunade held the sobbing Hyuga tightly, attempting to prevent her from leaving. "I can't let you see him like this, Hinata. You won't be able to forget that image if you do," she said. Sakura finally noticed the orange and red mass in the Sannin's arms after Hinata's yelling forced her to look away from her Sasuke and back to reality. "Sensei, is he really?" Tsunade expressed her anger at her apprentice during her moment of foolishness and disregard for her teammate by asking, "Are you really my apprentice? Do you think Hinata would be crying like this? He wasn't?" Hinata tried not to cry as she asked, Jiraiya-sama, what happened to him? "The idiot died giving me the ultimate version of my Sharingan. At least he did something right for a change. At least with me killing him I was able to defeat Orochimaru single-handedly, and I would have killed Kabuto as well if it wasn't for the white-haired oaf cutting in." Sasuke laughed as he explained despite killing Naruto, he discovered that concentrating on eliminating significant traitors helped him feel somewhat better about himself. Since he was a Uchiha, he must have had a hard heart. As she eyed Sasuke, Hinata lost her shyness and said quietly, "You killed him?" "Yeah, I killed those powerful ninja that couldn't be defeated by either Hokage." Most people who knew Hinata were shocked when she repeated the question in a louder voice. "You killed him?" she yelled. "You killed my Naruto-kun?" While Sasuke merely grinned once more. "Oh, you're that girl. The one with that silly crush on the idiot, Hinata, wasn't it?" "Yeah, it was by my hand that he died. He seemed happy to die just with the hope of getting me to return to keep a promise he made to the one really he cared for, and it definitely wasn't you. You dumb, worthless, snake-loving piece of shit. I did not have a crush on him," burst out of Hinata, bringing forth something no one ever believed existed in a person, much less this timid girl. Sasuke responded, "Then you'll find it easier to get over him then. Good, he was never good enough to have your attention," before Hinata interrupted him, initially speaking quietly. In her anger, Hinata charged at Sasuke, breaking free from Tsunade's grasp with her palm visibly glowing with immense amounts of chakra. "He was everything I wasn't. He was my inspiration when I was brought down, and just thinking of him kept me going. He was like the light in my darkness, giving me strength to persevere. At the age of 12, he was easily twice the man you will ever become, but most of all, he was the love of my life, the only one I felt was worthy of my love. When he was alive, I was too timid and shy to tell him, but now I can never know because you killed him, you murderer." The Uchiha was caught off guard by her speed alone, which allowed her to unleash her supercharged Jayuken strike, which was intended to kill him instantly. The Hokage emerged between the two, her fist glowing, just a few feet from joining them due to the effects of the Hyuga technique. Tsunade's arm fell limp at her side even though the two chakra-powered attacks communicated with one another to cancel each other out. Tsunade reached forward and tapped Hinata on the forehead, putting her into a deep sleep. "Hinata, I can't allow you to kill anyone in that manner inside our village. If it was allowed, you would have needed to beat me to it." Before she hit the ground, Tsunade safely held her in her arms. "I think Hinata needs some alone time, so Sakura, take her home. The rest of you follow me. We're going to spend some time with Ibiki." Between Stone Country and Fire, June 16 from 015 ACT to noon. After visiting a nearby village, a small caravan of travelers was traveling towards Iwakagore when they noticed a pale-looking person lying at the trail's edge. "Father, yes, Santon, tell me about it." "Someone is lying on the road's edge up ahead," the 15 or 16-year-old replied. "He looks bad. I don't think he has eaten in a month, we should help. Tsuchikage-sama might be an assassin waiting for the right moment to strike, so we really shouldn't take any chances as he drew a katana and dashed ahead of the caravan pursuing him, the guard said. We should eliminate this potential threat immediately. Cease. The older man ordered. Tsuchikage-sama? Leave him alone. You can see that his chakra capacity is quite low, he should hardly be able to survive a day without food, so there is no way that he could pose a threat. He called out to his guard. We'll take him to the village hospital so we can see if there's a new jutsu that's causing his extremely low chakra capacity. Tangray was annoyed that a possible danger would accompany them, but you don't defy a cage. He reluctantly took the stranger's unconscious body and carried him to the carriage to return to the village. Hokage's office in Konoha, June 17 from 015 Act to noon. Damn brat, your face should have joined mine up there next. I will stay in the village to keep your friends safe like you would have. If it weren't for your friends I would have left already, Tsunade said. Gazing out her office window at the faces of the former Hokages. However, one of her Anbu interrupted her. Hokage-sama, everyone is here that you have requested. The remnants of the original Leaf Genins and their senseis, including Iruka and Konohamaru's group, filed into the office. Very well, send them in. Surprisingly, even Kakashi made it on time. I'm sure you all know the reason why I have asked you here. We need to arrange a service for him. But, sensei, didn't the council organize those preparations? Every ninja who is killed while performing their duty has their name and hero's service inscribed on the monument stone, correct? Sakura asked. Usually that is correct, but the council has refused to acknowledge his existence as a ninja. The curvaceous blonde answered. But why? With her ever-present tears streaming down her cheeks, Hinata asked. Because of his secret, which the Sandaime ordered kept hidden from everyone his age and younger, he has been despised and shunned by the majority of the village. Anyone who shared this information could face treason charges and be put to death. They act as they please because they have nothing to defend now that he is gone. What could be so bad that Naruto-kun deserved that? He should be recognized by the village. After the lazy Chunin said, I've been working on a theory since the Chunin exams, the entire group gazed at him. It was never about what he did, but what was done to him. He should not have been able to do many of those things, but he showed more strength than he had previously shown. Neji should have been able to defeat every opponent, according to all of my calculations, but he lost to him even after blocking off all of his chakra. The only plausible explanation is that he had a different chakra source. After discovering that, I reasoned that sealing something inside of him was the only way to obtain a second chakra source. I've been able to get as far as that the rest of the older generation, including Tsunade, was taken aback. They knew he was intelligent, but this demonstrated that he was a genius. I don't know what was sealed in him granting him that power. When he called forth that power, I saw the form of a fox head residing within his chakra, therefore it was a fox sealed in him. The audience turned to Neji and stared at him, waiting for him to explain. It looked like a fox. A fox? Doesn't that make sense? Tenten grumbled. It makes perfect sense. Everything that was said about him, including the looks he received, all of them make sense. How is that logical? How are you familiar with Hinata? Kiba inquired. The majority of those present gave her a crazy look as she said, well, it's not like I followed him or anything. I think he held Kyuubi. At this point, they truly believed she was crazy. But the Yondaime killed the Kyuubi, correct, Iruka-sensei? Ask the pink-haired person who knows everything. Did the books ever state that he simply defeated it or that he killed it? So the Kyuubi was Naruto? Being the blonde that she is, Ino asked. Ino, screw you. He was despised by the village because they shared your lack of intelligence by keeping the demon contained. Naruto-kun prevented him from entering the village. His blue eyes were so gentle that he couldn't be a demon. He probably kept that from us. For that reason Hinata felt everyone was looking at her once more and made another attempt to hide. Tsunade thought about it, but she had to rush to finish things. You are right with everything, Hinata. The Kyuubi no Kitsune was sealed into Naruto by the Yondaime Hokage, but we still don't know why he specifically chose Naruto since there were 3 other children that could have taken that burden. How much did this girl care for him? She never even flinched hearing about the demon. I'd definitely take the odds that she loved him, and not just a normal love. She may have been the only one perfectly suited to him. We still need to organize a funeral, even though I would love to continue talking like this. When everyone had to confront that reality, their attitudes once more shifted, and Hinata had to fight to keep her feelings from exploding. The Naruto service will be held by the memorial stone at 3 p.m. Even though we are unable to put his name on the stone, we are still going to make our own. My other memorial stone would also be protected because the first one is jutsu protected. His body will then be burned, but I advise against staying for that as it could be extremely painful. No, a nearly inaudible voice from the heiress's direction squeaked. Hinata, did you say anything? Tsunade inquired. She looked nervously at her feet and said, well yes, adding that, he shouldn't have his body burned. What does that mean to you? Since there isn't space for cemeteries in a ninja village, it is the most honorable practice to burn all ninja. Are you suggesting that he shouldn't receive recognition? Was Kurenai's response. No, I know of a way to give him even more honor than that. How's that, Hinata? I know you loved him, but what did you do that we are unable to do? The Hokage asked. Well, he could, be treated the way I desired. I know it makes me look bad, but I would like him to be buried in the Hyuga tomb as though he was, you know. Hinata was obviously blushing and stuttering in embarrassment, but she refused to back down and flee. Tsunade said, no, I don't follow you there. She wasn't attempting to be cruel. She simply needed her to freely express what she wanted in order to begin the healing process. Although I couldn't express how much I loved him, I couldn't deny that he was given the affection he deserved all along. I want him to be treated like the husband of a Hyuga heiress, but since my father will not approve, I will have to smuggle his body into the tomb after everyone has gone to sleep. Hinata was about to sneer at him when he said, I'm sorry Hinata-sama, but I can allow you to sneak his body into the tomb, but he added, you'll need my help with that. After that brief suggestion, Hinata forced a smile. Alright, Hinata, you can do as you please. I won't stop you, but please use caution as we don't want you to be discovered. Furthermore, to give the impression that he was burned to anyone prying into his affairs, we will need something to burn in his place. Kakashi declared, maintaining as emotionless a face as possible, I'll take care of that. Alright, the last thing we have to do is a journal that Naruto has kept since he was 5 years old. Tsunade grinned to herself as she noticed a look on Hinata that said, he wrote in the journal that if he was to die, it was to go to the person that cared for him the most. This is yours, Hinata. Receiving the book made Hinata feel both happy and sad because she was going to see his inner self, but he was no longer there. You all can go now until tomorrow. The room swiftly left, leaving only Jiraiya and Tsunade in the office. Jiraiya. How could he have done this? He was on the verge of achieving his goals, but he threw everything away for a foolish pledge. I personally don't want to see that necklace of his ever again. Actually, I never found the necklace, it's gone. Good riddance to bad rubbish, it saves me the time. Jiraiya swiftly vanished after noticing that Tsunade needed some alone time. Iwa Hospital, 06:18 from 015 Act to noon. Oh, my head, moaned a patient trapped in a white, sterile, odorous room. Damn, I hate hospitals, he thought, before choosing to draw attention to himself. Hello? Is anyone present? What on earth am I doing? Ah, I see you're awake. The patient turned to face the voice and saw a respectable-looking woman, perhaps 16 years old, wearing maroon scrubs and wearing her black hair in a ponytail, but the patient failed to notice some of the details. And who are you? He inquired. I'll ask you the same question, you can just call me Doc. He told her, still wearing a contemplative expression, okay Doc, you can call me, I guess it is Ranto. Is Ranto your only name, or do you have a family name? I don't know. What about your place of origin? Alright, so my place is shit. I don't know. All I can recall is my name and a few other strange details. So, what is this additional stuff? Doc inquired curiously. Well, it's something to do with fighting, like something called jutsus. Really? Knowing jutsus, which are ninja techniques, could make you a ninja. That would explain why the plate is entirely blank but you have a headband. Alright, cool, I suppose. Please try to describe my appearance as there isn't a mirror nearby. Normally, people with amnesia are aware of their appearance, but Doc was taken aback when he said, I guess I can try. Well, your eyes look gray, almost silver, and your hair is a lifeless tan. Your face is very attractive, and wherever you were from, I'm sure you had a sizable fan base among women. You don't have a girlfriend, are you certain? She smiled mischievously as she asked. Doc gave him an odd look as he said, I wish I knew the answer to that, but I can't remember anything. His face was downcast, obviously saddened by his inability to recall. This sucks. Do you think you could hand me that white pillow over there? I'm a bit uncomfortable. You mean this one that's light blue? She inquired. Doc glanced at him once more and had an idea. No, that white one, the one I'm pointing to. Oh, no issue, just wondering what color my shirt is. Ranto gave her a weird look. After all, who could tell what color their shirt was? It's gray, I suppose, he said, noticing a change in her expression and knowing that something else was amiss. Actually no, it's maroon. What? Are you implying that I am unable to see color in addition to losing my memory of who I am? damn this whole thing. Screaming won't help you, Ranta, so please relax. Few people can see only in black and white, so at least we have something else to work on. Ranta thought for a while, but with an empty mind, he soon became bored and fell into a dreamless sleep. Try to get a little more sleep, and I'll bring you some food later, Doc said, leaving the room after turning down the lights a little so he could sleep. Konoha, June 18th, mid-afternoon, 015 AC. Following the announcement that a certain person had died and that their praised Uchiha had returned, the village appeared to be in unusually high spirits. The town was bustling and everyone seemed to be happy, but there was one area where the mood wasn't so upbeat. The Konohamaru Corps. Look guys, I didn't forget him this time. Gaara and his siblings, the Hokage, the usual friends and senseis, and even Tuchi and Ayame from the ramen shop were all present at the funeral of Uzumaki Naruto. Surprisingly, Sasuke was also present, with an Enbu team observing him. Everyone was dressed normally, with the exception of one person who wore a dark gray kimono with black glistening raindrops printed on the fabric and a black bow tying her together at the waist. When the sun fell on her kimono in the right way, you could almost swear that it was crying too. Sasuke felt very uneasy at the funeral, even though everyone knew his mind was being manipulated by the curse seal. However, that didn't stop one girl from sending him hateful glares. The service proceeded as any other service would, with friends sharing their memories while attempting to conceal the sadness of losing someone so close. The service lasted 20 minutes before the new Naruto stone was placed, and no one spoke as the crowd began to quietly disperse. Oddly enough, Sasuke left first, comforting a sobbing Sakura, and 2 minutes later Konohamaru and his small crew left with Iruka, leaving only Kakashi and Hinata to stare silently at the new memorial stone. Kakashi approached Naruto's body and took out a small orange book, which appalled Hinata because she knew what the book was and was going to rip his head off until he spoke to her without turning away from the still body. He detested these books forever. Kakashi picked up Naruto's body and placed him next to the spot where he was to be burned, saying, "You know, I started to read these books when I lost my teammates on a mission to hide my sadness, but I don't think they work very well. I thought that would change after spending so much time with Jiraiya, but it was never in his nature to think in that manner." A few minutes later, there were 37 books, only 17 of which were Paradise novels. The remaining books were collectibles of Jiraiya's earlier works. "At least my books will have a good purpose." Kakashi put down the 2 books and took out another, then another. "I know that a book can't help me now that I lost one of my students for good." Kakashi picked up the body and poofed away as the pile exploded into flames, leaving Hinata alone. "In remembrance of Uzumaki Naruto, our Hokage who never was, you will truly be missed," she read, falling to her knees and staring at the new stone. As tears clouded her vision, she felt free to express her feelings now that she was alone. She was emotionally and physically exhausted from crying all night and collapsing by the stone in a fitful sleep. "Naruto-kun," she closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face, "I will love you forever." After 5 hours of sleep, Hinata was woken up by Neji at 10 o'clock in the evening. The next 4 hours passed in a blur, and she was unable to fully comprehend it. She hurried home to distract her father and to put everything down as usual so that things could proceed as planned. Sternly said Hinata to Hiyashi, "Yes, Dad? Where did you go? You ought to have arrived home half an hour ago." "Sorry father, I was out but fell asleep after training." "You dare not tell me lies. Why try? I've never been able to get one for you. I take it that you attended that foolish funeral for the child you had feelings for?" Hinata was taken aback by his understanding of her emotions, which she found difficult to express. Quietly, she muttered, "Sorry father, at this point, that is irrelevant. The clan has not been tainted by demon blood since his passing. We were worried that you might pick him, but since you had complete control over the matter until you turned 18, we were powerless to stop you as a main branch member." She regained her voice and told him, "Father, he was never a demon, he was a hero." "Enough with your rudeness. We won't discuss this any further, okay?" "Yes, Dad, I'd like to spend the night in my room if that's all." Hiyashi retired to his chambers, and Hinata scurried off to hers, saying, "Fine, go. How could anyone hate you for keeping the demon away from us all for so long?" Hinata said, closing her door and glancing at the journal that was lying on her desk. "Even though you were carrying a heavy burden, you managed to keep a happy face on to keep us all in high spirits while you felt the opposite under that happiness mask. You once dropped your mask to me when we spoke before the Chunin finals, and that was the moment my feelings for you deepened so much. I always admired your courage and I loved looking at those eyes, but it was when I saw how strong you really were. To overcome those feelings was something I couldn't do for but a few minutes, but you held it up every day of your life. I wanted that strength, that's what made me admire you the most." Hinata was startled out of her reverie by a light knock on her door, and when she opened it, Neji was standing there. "You were early, aren't you? Neji-ni-san? Nearly midnight has arrived. I came to look for you when you failed to appear." Hinata, gasping, pushed Neji out of her room, changed in record time, and jumped out the window to begin her mission. She put the book she was holding back on the desk and looked for her clothes. The package was safely tucked away in the Hyuga tomb in just 5 more minutes after Hinata said a brief prayer and covered his body with a white sheet. The operation was a complete success, with everyone in the manor sleeping except for a few guards that Neji expertly occupied. Neji's anxious expressions were calmed by Hinata's words. "This tomb has weird preserving qualities, stopping all decay, and it is also believed that if you remove a sheet and look upon the dead you would go insane." After their mission was completed, they both hurried off in different directions. When Hinata returned to her room, she fell into a peaceful sleep and began to dream immediately after her slightly illegal activity. The dream of Hinata. Their faces gradually drew closer until their lips pressed against one another. Drawing in the warmth and love of each other, he spoke to her reluctantly as he pulled away, his glistening pale lavender eyes staring into deep blue ones that could be felt without the need for words. "Hinata-chan, I love you," she said, her pupilless eyes welling with tears of joy. "I love you too, Naruto-kun, more than you can possibly imagine. Would you mind testing that? I can imagine a lot." His smile warmed her heart. "Nothing will ever change my feelings for you, my love. If that is true, then, will you marry?" He never got to finish because his voice ended and he began to fade. His blonde hair lost its life and had the color sucked out of it, leaving it a strange tan color. His face changed as the whisker marks vanished entirely, and then he vanished entirely, replaced by a burning feeling in her eyes. When she saw the desk journal again, indicating that he was dead, Hinata's tears began to flow. "I could never finish that dream. The only way that could happen was with you, but now I won't ever be able to. How do you expect me to live without you?" Hinata said as she got out of her dream and went about her daily business before heading to the nearest training ground to train away her sorrows. Back at Iwa Hospital, morning, June 19, 15 AC. "Come on, Doc, Ranta has had a strange experience," a young nurse yelled. "What do you want?" "I was trying to sleep off some of my double shift from last night. The production of chakras appears to have more than doubled since Ranto-san took over, and it appears to be increasing at an accelerated rate. He will reach Jonin level in roughly 2 months if it continues. His body seems to be compensating for his weak state by filling in a hidden chakra void. That is truly surprising. He could depart tomorrow at this pace. What should we do with him? I'll have to ask the cage. I've already told him about his color blindness and amnesia given his personality. He might adopt him because he enjoys those charity cases. Warning. There will be a lot of jumping around when Hinata begins reading the journal, and some of the details may be difficult to read because of the line breaks. Please be patient. Some of the journal's details influence previous changes from the anime, manga. As a reminder, the years in the journal will be written as 000 AC, where 000 is the year of the Kyuubi attack. Additionally, please disregard the intentional spelling mistakes in the journal passages. Hinata locked herself in her room and opened the journal to the first page, smiling joyfully at the terrible writing. The handwriting. But the contents could be bad as well. Hinata tried to do her training but realized she couldn't focus because she was crying all the time and decided she could read some of the journal instead if all she was going to do was cry. 006 AC on October 10th. When I was 6 years old, an elderly man came to visit me and gave me this book. He told me to write in it, but I don't like doing so because it's dumb, so I stopped. 007 AK on October 10th. An old man helped me write so that I could at least make something look nice. He told me that he was the Hokage, but I don't know what that is yet, but everyone is nice to him, so I'm going to be the Hokage too. Some of the people who used to beat me in the orphanage just vanished yesterday, and the old man told me that I was moving somewhere else. I've come to realize that I enjoy being outside because it's warm and pleasant. When Hinata saw how mistreated he was at such a young age, being beaten and denied the sun for 7 years, she began to cry once more, but she found some solace in the knowledge that the Hokage killed the caretakers who vanished after discovering their treatment of him and removing him from the orphanage to live alone. August 20th 008 AC. Keep in mind that even though it is 008, he is still 7 because of how years work. This apartment is small, but it will do, and it's much better than that orphanage anyhow. I still think writing in this thing is terrible, but I have nothing better to do because I can't sleep because I start Ninja Academy tomorrow. I'm hoping I can make some friends there so I have someone to talk to. August 21st 008 AC. Haruka-sensei was upset because I was late, but I'm sure I wasn't because only half of the students were there. I didn't like any of my senseis. They all looked at me strangely, and for some reason, it made me feel sick inside. The other kids all looked at me in slightly different ways, but they were all pretty much the same. I even got tripped by that attractive, dark-haired boy when I tried to sit down, and it hurt so much when I hit the ground. Everyone laughed at me and made fun of me when I started crying, and I was prevented from going to recess later because I was disturbing the class with all the laughter. Before Hinata continued reading, she pondered, so that's why you started wearing that happy mask. I didn't like those fake smiles, but I always seem to get real ones. Did you actually like me after all? 008 AC on August 27th. Iruka-sensei sat in his chair before I could tell him that I had spilled paint on it, and you should have seen his face when he realized his butt was purple this time. When everyone laughed, it wasn't me. I reasoned that if I could pull more of these practical jokes, I would never be laughed at again. What should I do next? 008 AK on August 31st. There was talk today about getting a new student next week, and since he comes from that conceited white-eyed clan that always threw things at me while staring at me with those ugly eyes of theirs. I detest those eyes. There's no better way to greet him than with a good practical joke. Well, that was that earlier idea. My foolish family was the reason he detested my eyes. 008 AK on September 2nd. Today started out perfectly. I had my prank all set up, just waiting for the new student to arrive. I was so excited. Iruka-sensei introduced him as Hyuga Hinata, and I just laughed my ass off since he had such a girly name. I stopped laughing when he was presented to the class, and he was a she. Her head was down looking at her feet, so I couldn't see her face. She walked by me to get to her seat and she looked up at me. I expected those ugly freaky eyes, but they weren't there. She had kind gentle eyes. The kindness in those eyes made me feel happy, and I was able to give her a real smile and not my fake one. What was weird is she turned red and ran off to her seat like she was scared of me. It kind of irritated me, but I couldn't execute my prank on those nice eyes. I think I might have even seen her before, although I didn't go through with it. I could let good paint go to waste, and I managed to make Sakura happy now that her hair matched Sasuke's jacket. I think Sakura is cute when she is happy. I think I like her. After witnessing how quickly her crush fell in love with the pink-haired girl and made the decision to go try her training again, Hinata closed the journal, saying, "Well, back to square one. I know I should just let it go, but I want to know every part of him. I owe it to him." Midday, June 19th, 15 AK. Iwa Hospital. How many times must I wake up in a hospital? Aw man? Oh no, Ranta shouted. An elderly voice said, "Well, not any longer if you so desire." "And who are you?" "I am the one who was ordered to bring you here by the Tsuchikage. I was then instructed to invite you to Tsuchikage-sama's house, Ranto-san-o. And my name is Sanyoto. The cabinet should contain some clothing in your size range when you're done. I'll be waiting for you outside." Ranto, who for some reason detested hospitals and wanted to leave, shrugged off the impression that the invitation was non-negotiable and hurried out the door to meet up with Sanyoto again after Sanyoto left without saying anything more, leaving Ranto to think about what he had said. "How about we go now?" That was quick. Ranto simply shrugged and followed Sanyoto, who never waited for recognition before going into town. Since they appeared to be going directly to a small building at the foot of a mountain outcropping, Ranto decided he could think about that later. The village seemed odd to him. It was too small, and the majority of the area was made up of shops and stores with all the villagers crammed into the streets. There was no way they could all live there. It just doesn't make sense to not have housing for all those people. In an attempt to catch his breath after the brief walk, he said, "Say Sanyoto-san, when are we getting to our destination? I'm getting quite tired." "We'll be there in a few moments. The building up there is the entrance." "The doorway?" "Yes, the entrance. Have you not observed that the village lacks livable space?" Ranto nodded and went on. "We found it much easier to build our homes underground because the majority of the ninja here use earth elements." The mansion stood in the middle of the open space, with a fake sun shining on the grounds. "This way we can keep the village smaller and therefore we can protect it easier." He led Ranto through the enormous steel-reinforced oak doors and down into a long, dark tunnel before arriving at another set of doors that were smaller than the first but still large. They stepped through, and Ranto gazed around in wonder, as it appeared to be a small world beneath the ground. "You like it, kid?" "Well, it definitely is a sight to behold, I'll admit that much." When they finally arrived at a large dining hall, they encountered an older man, likely in his mid-50s, who had a rough-looking face, graying brown hair, and was dressed in traditional cage robes. "Whatever, let's get going. We don't want to keep him waiting." They entered the large manor and made their way through the long maze of halls, each of which had a unique look to ensure you wouldn't get lost once you figured it out. "How are you feeling, Ratu? For someone who is still in your condition, it's quite the walk," the man inquired. "It was a very exhausting experience, but may I ask who you are?" Ranto answered. "I thought it would be obvious with these robes." Indeed it was. but I prefer hearing it straight from the one in question as to not jump to conclusions prematurely. My boy, you have quite the vocabulary there. There are a lot of surprises in you. You can take a short nap before dinner, which will be served in approximately 4 hours. 4 doors down the hall on the right is a room. When it's ready, I'll send it your way. Ranto turned away from them and chose to take a much-needed nap, saying, "As you wish, Tsuchikage-sama." Sanyodo turned to his leader after he was out of earshot. "In this one, what do you see?" The Tsuchikage chuckled at Sanyodo's remark. "He has an overly clever mouth and abnormally low stamina." "Oh, come on, his vocabulary might have been the result of a high-class upbringing. To answer your question, though, did you notice how fast he bounced back from the lengthy walk? After the walk, he was breathing heavily, but he stopped for a short while and felt refreshed. Additionally, the doctors claim that his chakra capacity is growing abnormally quickly. He will reach Jonin level capacity in 3 months or less if he keeps up that pace." "That is unbelievable. Are you aware of his origins?" "No, neither he nor we have an idea. Our mental health specialists think he will never be able to regain his memories. Parts of his mind appear to be non-existent. I think he should be trained as a ninja for our village under your guidance, since his memory is probably gone forever." "Where is he going to stay throughout all of this?" "Until he finds a reason to leave. He will remain here. I will adopt him myself and grant him all the associated privileges if, after 3 months, he has no memories and demonstrates his reliability." "Is that a smart move? What he is capable of is unknown to us. I can't claim that there aren't dangers here, but I feel a great kindness that only the greatest heroes can possess. Everyone, not just our village, will gain if we can access that resource. In addition, I hope my son will benefit from some of his traits." "You might have something there. I guess I'll retire now and get him ready for some training and testing. Tell him to stop by the dojo tomorrow after breakfast." Sanyodo went to his room to get together and get ready for the day. Konoha, June 19th, evening, 015 AC. After putting her emotions under control, Hinata went home to sleep, but despite her physical exhaustion, she was unable to fall asleep and continued to stare at the journal long into the night. She gave in to her curiosity and continued where she had left off. 008 AC. On September 20th. Life hasn't been very exciting, but I did pull off 5 more practical jokes, but I won't go into detail so there is no proof that I did them. I decided to try talking to Hinata, the new girl, because there is something about her that makes me want to know her better, but she still seems to look away from me and hide behind the nearest object, usually a tree or something. I guess she is just too shy and strange, but I'll try again later. I tried talking to Sakura, but she responded with her fist. I failed another test today, and this time it seemed really difficult. I couldn't even find any information about the questions in any of our books. Perhaps I am just as stupid as everyone says. If I'm going to fail, I might as well go to sleep. October 10th 08 AK. I would normally sleep all day, but I feel like doing something, so I suppose I'll write. I'm 8 years old today, but as I do every year, I'm staying inside to avoid the villagers because they are always more violent on this day. A couple days ago I was walking back from academy and I saw Sakura and Ino picking flowers in a field and giggling about something. I decided to see what they were doing and walked up to the girls. They just took one look at me and yelled at me to go away and threatened to hit me if I didn't. I turned around quickly and ran into something. What I saw was Hinata standing there with an outstretched hand with nothing in it. She looked at her hand and looked at something on the ground, but I couldn't look away from her eyes to see what she was looking at. They were just so comforting to look into. Suddenly I saw tears flowing out of her eyes. I tried to smile to cheer her up, but it just made it worse and she ran away crying like usual. Sakura and Ino saw a crying girl run away from me and thought I hurt her and began to beat me senseless before knocking me out. They told me if I ever came anywhere near Hinata I'd regret it. I really just wanted to be her friend since she seemed very lonely, but to avoid another beating like that, I'll ignore her and try to be nice to Sakura. Hinata closed the book and found it much easier to fall asleep immediately this time. Even though she was crying, I apologize for running away. I was just trying to give you a flower, but I thought you knocked it away from me on purpose and then smiled like nothing happened. I guess it really was my fault you ignored me, she said. June 20th at 015 AC. Morning, Iwa, Tsuchikage Mansion. After finding his room yesterday, Ranto decided to take a shower and take a quick nap because he was feeling very exhausted. He fell asleep on the plush mattress for a few minutes before falling asleep again without having any dreams or memories. This morning, he was awakened by a knock on his door. He called to the knocker, "What the, oh, come in." A slim man in his 40s opened the door and walked in, examining him from head to toe as if he were examining him, even though he was still in bed. "Yes, what can I do for you?" "Oh, I'm so sorry. Ranto-sama, I guess I got distracted. We would like to see you in the dining hall." "Why are you referring to me as Sama when I'll be right there?" The man immediately withdrew to avoid disclosing any more information about his potential adoption. Well, it seemed right to do so. Ranto shrugged it off and tried to get out of bed with the effort it took him yesterday. He doesn't know he slept all night yet, still thinks it's a nap. But he had a slight problem when he tried to stand up and ended up flying head first into the ceiling. Maybe I'm just a little too energetic right now, he thought, and after getting cleaned up and dressed again, he went to the dining hall. He is still gaining large amounts of chakra while sleeping, so his strength is increasing as more chakra ends up going to his limbs. When he entered, he was amazed by the spread laid out on the table. Everything you could imagine having for breakfast was there, but that really struck Ranto as strange. My boy, is there something wrong? Observing the expression on his face, the Tsuchikage inquired. The older man's face briefly lit up with a smile before he burst out laughing. Well, it seems unusual to have breakfast items for an afternoon meal. You see, my boy, we let you sleep because you were so sound asleep when we went to wake you that nothing short of a fire starting in your face could have woken you up. Oh, and this is my son Santon. He gestured to the young man beside him, saying, "It is morning, so please sit down and enjoy some food." He bowed and said, "Thank you for your hospitality, Tsuchikage-sama, Santon-san," before he sat down at the table. "There is no need for such formalities in this house, my boy. Feel free to call me Kenji." "Thank you, Kenji-sama. Well, I guess it's a beginning." It took only a few minutes for Ranto to finish his meal and sit back in his chair. Content and relaxed Kenji had to mentally slap himself to get over his shock at his excessively enthusiastic eating. "Go ahead and help yourself to anything you like. We still have much to talk about." They were hoping to talk while eating, but when Ranto served them a double helping of almost everything and began eating at an astonishing pace, the two were left speechless. "All right, my boy, I suppose we can move on to the introductions and the standard questions about likes and dislikes that ninjas have. Let me begin since I don't have much free time. My only interest is in my role as Kage since the last Kage, who initiated the last ninja war. I have altered the village's customs and am now allies of almost every country. I enjoy assisting everyone I can, and I don't like interacting with haughty dignitaries and leaders. Finally, in order to help my son stop his lecherous ways, I hope he finds happiness in marriage. You'll be Santon's next." As if to flaunt his coolness, the young, brown-haired, pale blue-eyed teenager smoothed out his bandana, which bore his village symbol. "Well, women are my main interests," he said. "A real bastard, isn't he? I detest fat, ugly women, and my dream is to be with a lot of women. As you can see, my son is a bit of a ladies' man. He just needs some Cavassier cognac and a fro and he'd be Leon Phelps, yeah. But I hope someday one of his ladies can calm him into settling down. You're next, my boy." Since I don't have any memories, I can't say much, but when I think about things, I almost feel like something is missing. I can see the shadows of where people should be, but they seem to have vanished entirely. And even better, since I can't see color, breakfast might have been purple and I wouldn't have noticed. "Well, I appreciate you sharing. That's really fascinating. I ask that you go to the dojo and meet up with Sanyodo because I have to leave to fulfill my responsibilities to the village, and I'm sure Santon is due for a mission. I've asked him to put you through a ninja arts test to see how well you fit in with society. I don't have much else to do today, do I? That sounds good, Kenji-sama." "All right, my boy, we'll discuss what you've learned again over dinner." Ranto didn't give it much thought before he found the nearest person to guide him to the dojo. "When you are ready, ask any of the workers to direct you to the dojo." Kenji and Santon excused themselves and vanished into the hallways. When he arrived, the dojo was unremarkable. It had practice dummies on one side, targets on the other, and walls covered in a variety of weapons. Ranto approached the center of the dojo and bowed to Sanyodo, who was waiting for him. "Sanyodo-sensei, I'm here for whatever you have planned." "Very good." Ranto bows to him similarly. Of course, being a ninja is the most interesting and useful job in a ninja village like this one. As a result, I will be putting you through a variety of tests to determine whether you have any aptitude for this line of work. Have any inquiries? Sanyodo gave him a set of kunai after noticing a negative gesture. "All right, take these kunai and try to get them close to any of those 3 targets." Sanyodo's eyes widened in surprise, for only a few of the best of their genin could do that. Ranto felt his body go into automatic pilot, picking up 3 kunai, examining them strangely, and then throwing all 3 at once, hitting each target dead center as if it were second nature. "You were obviously a ninja at one point, so I suppose we don't need to test you anymore. However, there's something incomprehensible about you. Your chakra level is too low for any truly strong jutsus, but with practice, it will rise swiftly." "Well, that's great. I hope that by doing this, I'll be able to recall where I learned this information. I detest not having memories because it seems like I've always been able to do some of these things." "Yeah, that must suck, but I would like to see what else you might be able to do, if that's okay, of course." "Yeah, sure, whatever. I need to find out about myself, so let's go." Alright, this is just a hand-to-hand combat test. It will only last a few seconds so we don't get tired out before we get into the good stuff. Sanyoto assumed a fighting stance while Ranto stood idly. Well, he doesn't have a stance but he has that look. I wonder if that is his stance. He slowly delivered a punch so his student would see it and, as expected, it was caught, but he was taken by surprise when Ranto twisted his wrist and charged an elbow towards his abdomen as a diversion while his other fist came underneath his guard, making full contact with his sternum. I've seen enough. Sanyoto yelled after the brief altercation. Your technique seems to have an unpredictability that is both strange and effective given that you are panting after such a short spar. It is clear that you have endurance problems. We'll check in with you using chakra techniques after a short rest. Ranto recovered well from the fight and had no trouble overcoming his mild exhaustion. Sanyoto ran through 3 hand signs and put his palms to the ground, saying, "Earth displacement." The ground shook slightly as a few small rocks leapt upward from the ground, and he said, "There, now it's your turn." Ranto was still unable to figure it out, but the idea of learning a new jutsu excited him, and his sensei didn't notice. "Okay. Now that you rested up a bit, we can try out some jutsu." That was odd. You did it perfectly but your chakra failed to convert to the proper element, which brings me to an idea, Ranto said, perfectly imitating his movements, but when he put his palm to the ground, all he saw was a tiny dust cloud. After a few minutes, Sanyoto reappears with a small piece of paper and says, "Here, take this piece of paper and channel chakra into it. It is sensitive to elemental chakra and will reveal to us which way your chakra leans. Wait here. I need to go get something. It is wind if it is cut in two, fire if it is burned, lightning if it crinkles, earth if it becomes dust, and water if it becomes wet. I think I know what your element is, so just try it." "Well, I did expect the wind element, but I've never seen the concentration of it. This is unreal," Ranto said, channeling his chakra into the paper, which was then torn into confetti and swirled around the dojo. "You might only have a wind element chakra, not a wind-leaning chakra. In my opinion, having only one element, an element master, is even more uncommon than having a wind element user. We call them wind masters. And I think you might be one," Sanyoto suggested. "I would be honored if you would allow me to continue training you for the next year as a ninja for our village, as there has only been one in history, and that was centuries ago." "That is an intriguing suggestion, but I will accept it if I can make some conditions. First, I'm free to follow up on any leads I receive regarding my memories, and second, I won't have to swear allegiance to this village." "All right, I get the first request, but I'm unable to approve the second if we are prepared to spend a significant amount of time and money on your training. Why wouldn't you swear allegiance to our village?" "Well, I reasoned that if I had already been a part of a village before my memory loss, then swearing allegiance to this one would be regarded as treason and I would not be permitted to go back for the time being. I believe it would be preferable if I was merely a hired ninja stationed in this village." "Well, I understand why you did that. To find out if we can do that, I will need to speak with Kenji-sama. We'll discuss it with him over dinner. We've only been here for an hour or so, but you seem exhausted again. Until then, I think you should try sleeping again." Ranto nodded silently, went back to his room, and immediately fell asleep after laying face down on the bed. Konoha, June 20th from 015 am to noon. Kiba, who was sitting on the ground, panting, next to an equally wasted dog, called out, "Okay Hinata, I think we should stop now. It was a good spar." She returned to a ready stance and said, "No, Kiba-kun, let's keep going. I'm not quite tired yet." "I apologize, but I didn't say this to protect your health. You kicked my ass today, and now I'm wasted. I'm not sure what's bothering you, but I'm unable to keep up. Let's go, Akamaru." Since Kiba was no longer willing to train with her, Hinata made the decision to go back to her room because she was still unable to train alone. Without crying, she drugged herself into her room, took a quick shower to avoid being bothered, and then opened the journal. 009 AK on March 5th. "She is so nice that I don't think I could avoid her forever, but I don't think I'd really want to anyway. We had another one of those impossible tests today, and this time I chose to answer the question directly. Sakura hit me numerous times. I played a few more pranks, and I had to try really hard to avoid Hinata with that threat hanging around. When a shinobi falls at a speed of 4 meters per second, he lands on a foam pit and compresses the pit to a height of 0.4 meters. If the pit can break the fall with an average force of 120 N, how much mass does the shinobi have? What was the shinobi's name and did he use a jutsu while falling? Is all I could write on the paper as an answer, and I have no idea what that is talking about. If these are the questions used to be a shinobi, I'm tempted to give up, but I will never give up. 009 AK on June 10th. I don't feel any smarter after a year of school, so maybe I'm just stupid. Old man Hokage stopped by today and asked to read my journal, but by the time he finished, he seemed really upset, said something about the academy, and left my apartment. I wonder if I wrote something inappropriate, and I might just stop writing. 009 AC on October 10th. I'm 9 years old, but I'm still alone on my birthday. The old man would come to see me, but I know he needs to keep the ninja in line at the festival. I've been totally successful in avoiding Hinata. I don't understand why the villagers still hate me. I haven't really done anything to them, but they sure do things to me. I think it hurts to ignore someone so gentle, but it will hurt even more if I get beaten again. October 10th 010 AC. I am now 10 years old, and another useless year has passed since my last post. This year at the academy has gone much better than previous years, and I have found some kids who put up with me. Kiba is there to help with pranks, and his little puppy is a riot. Shikamaru is there if I just want to unwind and not talk, but I believe he is too lazy to care who joins him as long as he doesn't have to talk. I could probably call them friends, but it doesn't seem that way to me. October 10th 011 AC. I started my third year at the academy at the age of 11, and although the villagers seemed to be less outspoken about their hatred, they still resorted to giving me those evil glares. This year, we are concentrating on fighting techniques and jutsus instead of all the dull history and theories, and I have noticed that most of the girls around me are getting more attractive. Sakura and Ino started fighting over who gets to sit next to that stuck-up Uchiha. I don't understand what makes him so special. Additionally, Hinata started wearing a large coat, which, for some reason, helps her blend in so well that I can ignore her even when I don't want to. October 10th 012 AC. I'm 12 years old, and things are getting better. I still stay off the streets, but at least I don't have to avoid everyone anymore. Oddly enough, Iruka-sensei is very kind to me. 2 days ago, he took me out to Ichiraku's for some ramen, and during our meal, he advised me to write in a journal or something so that I would have something to look back on my achievements. I'll try writing more frequently again. Hinata was unable to keep her eyes open any longer and fell asleep in the open journal pages, so she never got very far. Iwa, June 20th evening, 015 AC. Ranta was still asleep when evening arrived, and he was so asleep that he was not aware of the shouting or the knocking. "Are you awake, Ratu?" Sanyodo got no answer. "Hey, awaken." He left the room to meet the cage for the evening after deciding to make sure he was still breathing because he was still not responding. Damn, that kid can sleep, he thought. "How was the testing, Sanyodo?" Kenji inquired. He sat down at the table beside Kenji and said, "Well, I think I tired him out a little too much in that short time. He's still sleeping. His chakra is still quite low, but it has increased by almost 6 times since we found him. By tomorrow, you can anticipate double that amount once more, which could allow you to engage in some actual training." "Hold on, I didn't mention that he even started practicing ninja skills." "You know he would, but how?" "I'm the cage. I'm supposed to know these things." Kenji grinned. That and every time someone new to him walked in the dining hall at breakfast, he would grab at his right thigh like he was expecting there to be a kunai pouch. "Yes, I do recall him doing the same in our little spar." "How do you feel about his abilities?" "He has undoubtedly received ninja training, but he lacks a true taijutsu stance. Even at the slow speed we were moving at, he still managed to get in a hit I wasn't expecting. I believe this is likely because his moves are illogical and unpredictable, almost as if they were designed for people who are very good at anticipating movements, such as a style designed for use against Uchiha. Target practice was pointless. He is likely more skilled than I am, but the interesting part comes with the jutsus. He is also very silent and has a dry personality. He probably lost that with his memories," Kenji said, dropping his eating utensils in surprise at what he was implying. "I believe he is a wind master." "Well, I didn't anticipate a wind master either. Have you mentioned that he might join our village yet?" "Yes, I did, but he refuses to pledge full loyalty to the village in case he belonged to another and wanted to rejoin, and he wanted free reign if he found leads to his memories. He thought that one out nicely, though I think his services are still useful to us. After a year of training, make sure he receives that blank forehead protector back to identify himself as a ninja. He will be sent on missions to pay for his training for roughly 6 months after that year, after which he will be free to do as he pleases. Another requirement is that he must rise to the rank of village noble and all that entails according to village law. Any elemental master who stays for more than a year must register as such to teach him every facet of being a noble. You might also want to locate an expert in etiquette." Santon was away on a mission, so the two of them ate the remainder of the meal in almost complete silence. After they were done, they excused themselves and went their separate ways. Konoha, daybreak, June 21st 15 AK. Since it was still very early, Hinata chose to read more about Naruto's life before morning training, but she woke up with a terrible neck ache and mildly cursed herself for falling asleep in the journal. November 7th 012 AC. Today is just another day. I decided to do my extra practice, which I obviously need to do in order to catch up to anyone. What's strange is that for the past year or so, I've had the feeling that someone is watching me, but it's more peaceful than a scary one today. However, I caught a glimpse of the person watching me from behind the academy building, and when I looked into it, they vanished, and that pleasant feeling vanished as well. I believe that I may have an angel keeping watch over me. December 12, 012 AC. Iruka-sensei took me to lunch last week and seems to be doing it a lot more often, but I'm not complaining about free ramen. Iruka also announced that there would be a Christmas dance or something, and I had no idea what it was, but he said that you should ask someone of the opposite gender to go with you. I looked around the class and saw Hinata looking at me with a bright red face, and I wondered if she was okay. I saw Sakura ask Sasuke, and he said it was a complete waste of time, and Sakura looked devastated. I decided to ask her if I could take her to try to cheer her up, but she told me to shut up and greeted my face with a fist or five. I chose to ignore everything and just not go because, as Shikamaru would say, it was just too troublesome. January 13, 013 AC. Happy New Year. Over the next 6 months, we will be studying how to pass the Genin exams. Iruka-sensei has compiled a list of 20 possible test strategies, and to my dismay, the majority of students can already complete half of them, while I found the first one difficult. January 24, 13 AC. When I saw a woman in the village wearing very little clothing and attracting the attention of all the guys, I thought of the ideal escape strategy for my pranks. They wouldn't be able to think with a half-dressed woman there. I was able to do the henge to some extent today, but it lacked the flair I wanted. February 4, 013 AC. I've worked hard on my new distraction jutsu, but it wasn't working out because I didn't know what a woman's body looked like, so I did some research. I found a magazine store where only men shopped, and I thought maybe I could find something to base my jutsu on, but the women in those magazines wore nothing. I was amazed at how oddly beautiful a girl looks when she's naked, but I'm afraid I'll never be able to look at another girl without picturing her nude. I feel so perverted now, but at least I made my jutsu a total success. February 17, 013 AC. After sweeping and mopping the entire academy, I am exhausted. I barely passed the henge test after using my new jutsu to knock Iruka unconscious for half an hour. I'm not sure why, but Hinata asked Iruka if she could assist with the cleaning. Perhaps she felt it was good training. 013 AC on February 27th. I hope to pass tomorrow's Genin exams, but I'm terrible at tests, so if they test me on Bushins, I'll fail because I can never do them right. I hope they won't test us on that. 013 AC on March 1st. She really does look cute sometimes, but I can't do anything about it because I could get beaten up again, so why not ask Sakura out on a date? I know I'm stupid, but I still don't understand why she gets so red when I look at her. Yesterday was the Genin exam, and as I expected, they put the Bushin on the test, and I failed horribly. However, when I walked to the front of the room for my test, I saw Hinata staring at me once more, and she was doing her finger prodding thing when she tries to get the courage to say something. Sakura is kind of pretty, and it's getting so easy to ask her out that I think I might actually like her now. Anyway, as I watched all the parents proudly pick up their kids and congratulate them on passing, I noticed Hinata staring at me with sad eyes, so I pulled a cheery smile out of my bag of fake smiles, but it quickly faded when I saw the older Hyuga glare at me with those terrible eyes. After everyone had left, Mizuki-sensei talked me into stealing a scroll from the old man, who said that I would pass if I learned a jutsu. I was able to learn a jutsu, defeating the Cage Bushin with it, and Iruka-sensei gave me his forehead protector and declared that I passed. Damn it, Sakura. It was your fault everything happened. If you wouldn't have threatened him, he would have talked to me, and if you wouldn't have made him promise to bring Sasuke back, he'd still be alive. Hinata screamed in her head a few more times before deciding she needed to go out and face that issue. Perhaps after breakfast she smiled a little but still slammed the journal shut in anger. Iwa, June 21st. Morning, 015 AC. This morning was similar to the previous one. Ranta hurt himself a little while he was trying to get out of bed. He was shocked that he had missed the evening once more, but he didn't think about it for very long. He ate breakfast in silence in the dining room as Kenji gave his own conditions and then offered the forehead protector. Back up a chapter to refresh your memory if you've already forgotten. Do you accept, my boy? Before I give an answer, what does being a noble entail? Very astute, my boy. Nobles usually are mostly just for show. Usually you only see them during village events. Another use is to be a medium for disputes, helping the parties to settle their differences. We are also required to list your marital status to be reported to other nobles and noble clans for possible betrothal. Nearly all requests of that nature will be optional, only requiring a letter of declination, but every so often you may be involved with one that is mandatory, requiring you to meet with the person before you can decline. That is usually reserved for events that may strengthen villages' alliances. One more thing they get is a weapon specially built for your strengths. Ranta received a nod of agreement and took up the forehead protector, securing it around his head, so I don't have to get married at all, but some betrothal meetings require attendance, correct? He asked Ranta excused himself from the table and went to the dojo to locate his sensei. Thank you Kenji-sama. I will report to Sanyodo sensei for more training. Konoha, June 21st. Mid-morning, 015 AK after eating breakfast and doing some light morning training. Hinata was still unable to concentrate until he had allayed her feelings of rage. Hinata marched to Sakura's home, carrying the journal as evidence determined. Hinata approached the door and loudly knocked, beckoning the pink-haired medic inside. The young Hyuga slapped Sakura across the face, knocking her back in shock and pain before she could finish saying, "Hello Hin." What the hell was that for Hinata? Without requesting permission, Hinata entered the house and held up the journal, saying, "Let's just say we have some things to talk about." Sakura sat her down and shut the door so they could discuss the problem. Sakura didn't think Naruto would remember her threats, which Hinata regrettably agreed with for a reasonable reason. After a few brief explanations, naturally, after Sakura apologized for threatening him once more, they made the decision to sit down and read a few entries together. 012 AK on March 2nd. I'm stuck on a team with Sasuke Teme at first, and then I'm stuck with a pervert sensei who is chronologically challenged and never late. However, there is some good news. Sakura is on my team. Hopefully, she will recognize me and realize that I am just as good as the Teme. In any case, Kakashi sensei is terrible at his dumbbell test, but in a strange turn of events, we passed it and became his first genin team. Tomorrow, we will go on our first mission. 012 AK on March 9th. These are called missions. Even Konohamaru could probably do these. Really. How many times must I endure that dumb cat's scratches before I receive a legitimate mission? I need a better mission because it seems like we genin are also the local weed pullers. 012 AK on March 10th. After I screamed at old man Hokage today for constantly giving us bad missions, he gave up and gave us a C mission that involved protecting an inebriated old bridge builder as he returned to Wave Country. I believe it will be pleasant to spend some time outside of this village. May 12th 012 AK. For security reasons, I never take my journal on missions. Our team just returned from a risky mission to Wave. Since Tazuna and the Wave Nation lacked the funds for an A class, the mission that was originally intended to be a C ended up being an A. I will keep this story brief. We encountered a couple missing nins on the way there, and during the altercation, they poisoned me. After defeating them, we continued until we ran into Zabuza and Haku, two more nins. After Sasuke and I had to free Kakashi sensei from a jutsu trap, he continued to beat him until Haku appeared, pretended to be dead, and withdrew with him. After meeting Tsunami and her son Inari at Tazuna's house, Kakashi sensei had us use chakra to climb trees. Sakura did it nearly flawlessly the first time, while Sasuke and I struggled. I thought Haku was a girl when I passed out during training, but he was actually pretty nice. He demonstrated to me that Shinobi Code Rule number 25 is foolish because, as humans, we are unable to suppress our emotions, and some of them actually make us stronger. After Zabuza and Haku passed away, and after Zabuka killed the jerk who had hired him, Gatu, I made the decision to create my own ninja. I vowed to never give up, to keep my word, and to protect everyone I cared about. June 12th 012 AK. Some of us encountered some odd ninja from the Sand Village a few days ago. I've never heard of the Chunin exams, but they told us they were here for them later. Kakashi sensei told us we could also enter them. 012 AK on July 1st. Exams began today. Sasuke's conceit and excessive attention to himself caused us to have some trouble getting to the exam room, but I didn't perform much better once we were there. Kabuto, a man we met, seemed odd because he hadn't passed the test in 4 years. I didn't know any of them, so the written portion of the test was really difficult. Before Hinata surprised me by allowing me to cheat off her paper, I didn't even see her there. I was pretty frustrated. I guess I missed the test's purpose, but I didn't cheat because I didn't want to risk having her fail for helping me. How was I supposed to know that I was supposed to cheat when I should have recognized them from seeing them all on those tests during my first year of academy? I'll make sure to give Iruka-sensei an extra large bill the next time we visit Ichiraku's, now that I know those questions were never meant to be answered. Before a crazy woman barged into the room to announce the next section of the test, we had all passed. 012 AK on July 8th. How exciting! I defeated Kiba in my match. I apologize for not writing about anything else. Orochimaru attacked us when we entered the Forest of Death. Sasuke was bitten by the freak while I was punched, which felt really strange after I was swallowed by a huge snake. We fought and lost badly. After that, we got into the tower after fighting some other strange guys to get our scrolls. We had a preliminary round to eliminate some individuals because there were a lot of ninja teams that made it through. Sasuke narrowly prevailed in a battle against a man named Yoro Ishino, then used his bugs to annihilate Zaku, that sound-bashing idiot. I wasn't really listening, but Konkuro, the sand puppet, defeated Tsurugu in their battle after a fight. Sakura and Ino knocked each other out. Tenten's weapons were useless. Sotomari, the Sand Lady, easily defeated her despite his claim that it was too bothersome. Shikamaru defeated Kin. It was all a blur. But Kiba was my next opponent. Fortunately, I defeated him, but I won't tell him how fortunate I was. The following match was cruel, pitiful, and most likely one I will never forget. Hinata gave me this amazing ointment before that match, and it immediately healed my cuts. I wonder why she did that for me, though, since I just ignore her. I dislike remembering her fight with Neji because his attacks were vicious, and I detested witnessing Hinata suffer such severe injuries, but she persisted as a formidable ninja should. Sakura mentioned that she didn't give up because she was observing me. I'll consider that later, but I am aware that it is a major clue to something very significant. I couldn't help but jump down and swear on Hinata's blood to defeat Neji for harming such a good girl after she coughed up blood and fell to the ground. It was a big fight with Gaara and Lee. Gaara almost killed Lee despite the fact that he used these gate thingies and became extremely fast. Dosu swiftly dispatched the last Choji with a single blow. That favorite playing bastard sensei left me with that perverted ass Ebisu to train Sasuke, and I now have about a month to prepare to fight Neji. Well, sorry for slapping you, Sakura, I was just so angry. That's not a problem, but what got into you recently? You don't seem like you anymore. I decided I need to change. If I could have talked to Naruto-kun, things may have been different. If I want to keep any other people in my life, I need to stop being so shy. I would completely die if another person is taken from my life. I still don't know how I'll survive without Naruto ever coming back. Hinata turned around, walked out the door, closed it, and ran back to the Hyuga Manor before going back to her room and locking the door once more. Well, before you do anything stupid, be sure to come by and talk. 012 AC on July 9th. It was a strange day. I went to Ebizu's training. We were interrupted by perverted laughter while he was teaching me how to walk on water. We noticed an elderly man looking into the woman's side of the bathtub. Ebizu attempted to stop him in an attempt to hide the fact that he was a pervert himself, but this was a bad idea because it turned out that he was Jiraiya, one of the 3 legendary perverts. Actually, he was Sanin. But you get the idea. I used my sexy jutsu to fool Jiraiya, Ero Sennin, into continuing my training. Where Ebizu left off, I discovered that my chakra control was affected by the strange punch the snake freak had given me. Water walking became simple after that was resolved, and he chose to teach me how to use my red chakra for summoning. August 10th 012 AC. Since I began training, a lot has happened, and today is Chunin Finals. I depleted my chakra yesterday and woke up in the hospital. Ero Sennin decided to throw me off a freaking cliff because he believed that the only way to activate my red chakra was to risk my life. I would have died if that hadn't worked, but it did, and after requesting chakra from the scumbag fox, I was able to call forth Gamabunta, the toad boss. I believe I won the competition to stay on the enormous toad's back, even though I passed out in the end. Additionally, Gaara is insane. Yesterday, he attempted to kill Lee in the hospital with his crazy ass. August 13th 012 AC. I'll start at the beginning, but man, shit has really been on the rise lately. I went for a walk 2 days ago to decompress because I was so anxious about facing Neji, and I ended up at the training area where I became a genin. Hinata, who has been showing up a lot lately, was surprisingly present. I suppose I startled her because she attempted to hide behind one of the stumps. She seemed like the ideal person to ask about Neji, so I did. She almost yelled at me when I told her that I felt like a failure. If anything, she believed that I was a proud failure, that I inspired her, and that I was a strong individual. Although it might have been me, I had the impression that she was tempted to say more. I think I really like people like her because she made me feel so good about myself. With the aid of Kyuubi's chakra and a small trick, I defeated Neji. Once more, Sasuke received preferential treatment, and his match against Gaara was postponed. The other matches were dull, so let's skip them. When the sound came, Gaara fled to attack Sakura and Sasuke by changing into a strange sand creature. He also has a demon. I had to intervene to save them after they were severely beaten. I accidentally called forth Gamakichi before calling forth Gamabunta. I fought with him, and after that, things became hazy, and we both passed out unfortunately, before he was expelled from the village. The snake bastard battled and killed old man Hokage. In a few hours, there will be his funeral. 012 AC. On September 12th. Despite doing a lot, I haven't ridden in a month. I went outside the village with Ero Sennin to locate the 5th Hokage. I gained knowledge of the Rasengan during the trip, and I even won a wager with Ba-chan, receiving her necklace in exchange. After we battled the snake bastard once more and he managed to escape, we eventually persuaded her to return. Early in the journey to find Ba-chan, Sasuke was kicked in the ass by his brother Itachi. When we got home, Shikamaru was promoted to Chunin and Tsunade Ba-chan healed the severely wounded ninja. Sasuke was a total ass after he recovered, and we ended up fighting on the hospital's roof. Sasuke left to gain power with Orochimaru shortly after it was broken up even though she had done everything she could to stay with him. Sakura was devastated by his departure. She simply started crying when he left, something I had never seen her do before. I suppose that liking her was a huge lie, even to myself. But I still vowed to bring Sasuke back to her after realizing that she truly loved him and that this was not how I felt about her. We put together a group of genin to find Sasuke and bring him back, but we encountered a lot of sound-damaged people wearing curse seals. I managed to catch up with Sasuke, but many of my friends suffered severe injuries in the battle. He always seemed to be ahead of me in everything, even though we beat the living daylights out of each other. Since Kyuubi kept healing me even though I should have died 3 times during the fight, I think he was actually trying to kill me. I had the opportunity to kill him at one point, but I chose to demonstrate my ability by scratching his forehead protector instead, which caused me to get a hole in my chest. Once more I felt completely worthless when I woke up in a hospital bed once more. But Ero Sennin insisted that I accompany him on a training trip for roughly 3 years. He suggested that I complete some missions here in order to raise some cash before we depart in a few months. December 7, 012 AC. It's been a little crazy around here, and I'm leaving with Ero Sennin today. I completed a few, guard this, and, get that, missions, but nothing that would have assisted in Sasuke's location until the mission. Shino and Hinata sent me to locate a bug that I still can't pronounce. I did recall some of it, but we failed it miserably. I had to go to the bathroom while we were sleeping, and for some reason, I was drawn to a river, where I saw the most breathtaking scene under the moonlight on the water. A stunning girl was dancing nude. She was captivating with her graceful movements while the water splashed all around her. My head would have exploded if I had been able to see her form in detail, but I still wanted to get closer. I scared her away when I reached the edge, slipped, and fell into the water. I initially believed it to be a dream, but since dreams are based on what you've seen, something that was more beautiful than anything I've ever seen had to be real. I realized that sometimes people think I'm pretty dumb, but I figured out this because some things never get past me. She was roughly my age, so she had to be a ninja because she was on the water. However, who else was in the vicinity of my age? A female ninja, and not sleeping in the tent. Hinata. I can understand why she now wears that coat. To conceal her beauty I pretended that my experience was a dream and told Kiba that Hinata was flushed. I suppose I should leave this place after 3 years. Farewell, Konoha. Naruto-kun, you liked it and knew it was me? Hinata closed the journal and held it close to her as she sobbed herself to sleep for another bout of restless sleep. I wish I could have talked to you more. Now all these feelings about you possibly liking me back are all wasted. Iwa. The same period Ranta was worn out from his training day. After 3 hours of trying, he was able to create a small wind-based chakra dagger after being introduced to the chakra amplifier, a special weapon reserved for nobles. In the form of a hilt he went back to his typical sleep, only to wake up before dawn. Konoha, June 22nd. Morning, 015 AC. Hinata got up early because she was determined to finish the journal in one sitting. After a quick shower, she sat down to finish her reading at her desk. October 10th 014 AC. Since he conducts his research while I train, Ero Sennin only allows me to take my birthday off because his training is so difficult. When he visits the place where I passed out training the following morning, I usually find him standing beside me and telling me not to lie around. I suppose it wasn't a total waste because he was able to teach me some new jutsus and I was able to master the Rasengan. My issue is that Ero Sennin is becoming fixated on the Kyuubi chakra and wants me to spend the majority of my time managing it. I detest using that chakra excessively because it causes anger and the desire to kill to overpower some of my feelings. I detest that sensation. 015 AC. On March 21st. Ero Sennin spends his days peeping for those damn books, so I was able to get some time away to write. Yes, he even wants me to read them as part of my training. I read everything I had written in my journal up to this point today, and the most bizarre thing struck me. Hinata has appeared in almost every entry over the years. She was always red, like blushing, when she looked at me. According to a lot of entries, I noticed. Does she actually like me based on that? I must be so stupid that I'm the only person in Konoha who hasn't noticed. Even though I know it's impossible, I still want to consider the possibility of being with her. Besides the fact that I am an orphan with a demon in my stomach, I would be killed on sight anywhere near the manor, and even if we were to be together, how would the village view her? She comes from a prestigious clan and will probably marry away for someone to gain power. I can't allow her to encounter those stares from everyone. October 10th 15 AC. Time flies when you don't know what's going on, and I suppose I'm 15 now. I'm twisting the cage bushin, and I'm having a hard time getting what I want. Every time I think I'm getting close to creating a more resilient clone, I lose a day of my memories in the process. Usually, I find myself aimlessly wandering around since they are supposedly on the move again. Ero Sennin is constantly berating me for straying lately because of Akatsuki. He chose to personally oversee my training as a result, but this calls for additional Fox Chakra training. I easily reached about 2 tails worth of chakra, but according to Ero Sennin, I need a lot more. I get sick every time I use that chakra because of all the bloodlust. Regardless, I am eager to go back home in 8 months. 026 AK on February 12th. I pulled out 3 tails of chakra a few days ago, and I still felt largely in control. However, Ero Sennin demanded more, so I pulled for more, and that's when everything went dark. Ero Sennin was barely conscious and I had almost no clothes on when I woke up in the middle of 2 acres of demolished land. He asserts that the power of 4 tails is exponentially greater than that of the other tailed stages. He's currently confined to the hospital for some time, which is precisely why I detested using that chakra, but at least I can practice my modified jutsu. 016 AK on February 21st. My jutsu seems to have improved recently. I tried using more chakra to reinforce my clones, but if I did it in a specific way, they actually produce chakra on their own. They have changed personalities and are nearly as resilient as I am. Making contact with them and then attempting to cancel the jutsu is the only way to dispel them. The best part is that when they dispel, your chakra isn't wasted. Instead, what they didn't use returns to me. 016 AK on May 12th. I've gotten better at creating new clones, but occasionally I get clones that look very different from me and even have personalities that are nearly opposite of mine. The worst part, though, is that we both believe we invented the jutsu. It's simply unsettling. 016 AK on June 12th. We're supposed to be returning home shortly, but I might not be able to. Orochimaru somehow managed to reduce the amount of time between uses of his jutsu, allowing him to use it in roughly 5 days. So I just had a thought. We are currently just outside of Sound, and Sasuke is only with him because he believes he will gain the power he desires, which he can only obtain by killing his best friend or family, and I am the closest thing he has to that. Even though what I'm about to do might end up costing me my life, there's a chance it won't, and I'll take that opportunity to bring him back because everyone needs love and people in Konoha adore him in the next life. I hope to see my friends, but if not, I hope to see Konoha again. Take care of yourself, everyone, and if you find this, give it to the person who knows me the best. Naruto-kun. What were you planning? Hinata was about to close the book when she noticed something unusual with one of the pages. I truly want to know how you let this happen without destroying half the area. What? Is this page sensitive to chakras? A message appeared when Hinata directed a small amount of chakra into the page. Hinata, since it indicates that I did not return from my foolish plan, I sincerely hope you are not reading this. Since you always seem to understand exactly what I was thinking and therefore knew me the best, I'm positive that you are the one who received this journal. I'm grateful to you, who I assumed was probably watching me all these years. It was your soothing presence that helped me get through those moments when I felt unworthy like you did before the Chunin exam. I would do anything to have you here to say something to restore my hope, or at the very least, to be close by so I could feel the serenity you provide. I have a feeling that my pursuit of Sasuke won't go as planned, but I have to get him back because if I don't, Orochimaru will become unbeatable, and I can't let that happen. I apologize for not being able to see you and express how I feel. Looking back, I see that you play a significant role in my life, even though I never really realized how frequently you appear. Though I don't want to exacerbate the situation by telling you about it, I truly wish I could understand these feelings I've been experiencing when I think of you. I sincerely hope you're not reading this since I can't be there to make you happy. I hope you can move on and find happiness with someone else. I already know you are the strongest kunoichi of our generation, so you didn't need to work so hard to get my attention. Make sure you believe that and keep working to become stronger. In my final letter, I want you to swear that you will keep working out to get stronger and that you will find love and happiness. We both follow the same ninja way, so I know you will fulfill your promise. Why, Naruto-kun? Hinata cried uncontrollably as she curled up on her bed, hugging the journal, and said, I promise I will try to move on. I'll try to live without you. I really needed you. I don't know how to love someone else, but I need to move on for you. She spent the majority of the day in her room, wallowing in her grief until she was unable to shed another tear. She dragged herself out of bed and went in search of a training ground where she could inflict physical suffering in order to conceal her emotional suffering. Konoha, 016 AK on July 22nd. The funeral was held about a month ago. Everyone was being given missions again after their vacation, and the village was just beginning to return to normal. However, Kiba was among those who were a little nervous about getting started. He found the person he was looking for as he approached the nurse's station at the Konoha hospital. The slender, pink-haired medic he needed a moment with was chatting away with one of the other nurses. He called out to Sakura, grabbing her attention. "Hey Sakura, I need to speak to you." "Huh, Kiba?" she asked, bewildered because she had never spoken to him. "What do you need to talk about?" It was his solemn response. "Hinata," she snapped back. "Well, I think it is a little early to ask her out on a date, Kiba." "I won't help with that," she said. Turning away from him, she asked, "No one in particular? Why do they always come to me about this stuff?" "No, Sakura, it isn't about that. I just think she is trying to hurt herself." She turned back to him and yelled, "What? Tell me more, Kiba, out with it, more." Ever since a few days after the funeral, she has been training hard. Her words, "I don't see what is so horrible about that," came before he could finish. Kiba simply sighed, a little annoyed by her interruptions. "Let me finish. I'm not talking normal hard. I'm talking Lee hard. I just talked to Hanabi, and according to her, Hinata has either come home nearly dead on her feet, or was carried back by Neji. She even said that Hinata has been crying herself to sleep, hugging the journal every night. I need you to talk to her. I'm afraid that if she doesn't find a way to cope with her feelings, that she might not return from our next mission." "Ah crap, sorry Kiba. I'll take care of it, but I'll need some reinforcements." "Thank you, I'll owe you one." Since this was formally an emergency, Sakura left to find her assistance, saying, "Nope, you don't owe me a thing. I'm doing this for her, not you." 4 stunning young ladies marched through Konoha's streets with a mission. A rather large box of cinnamon rolls accompanied Sakura, Ino, Tenten, and even Ayame from the ramen shop. Since they frequently visited the ramen shop and noticed how much everyone missed the blonde's presence, they all became friends over the course of the last few years. The 4 women were horrified by what they saw when they arrived at Hinata's preferred training area. The way she was hitting the targets without thinking about her safety. The stumps were obviously pink. Was almost like a female Lee. To stop her, they hurried over to her. Sakura said in a gentle, amiable tone, "Hinata, we need to talk." Her dry response as she continued to strike the target with her bloodied hands was, "Can't training. I'm afraid it isn't up for debate, Hinata. Stop and let's talk." "No Sakura, I have training to do. Leave me alone." Hinata continued to strike without pausing or even looking back. When Sakura said, "I'm sorry Hinata," she regretfully pulled her hand back and slapped her sensitive face instead of punching it. "Stop Hinata. Can't you see what you are doing to yourself?" Sakura screamed. Hinata's eyes widened as she saw her friend's solemn yet dejected expression. At last, she gave in and broke down in tears. Her somber cries persisted, and her pale eyes kept streaming. Sakura instantly dressed her bleeding hands and gestured for the others to come and assist her with the small jumble of emotions. Hyuga, with tears in her eyes, begged, "Why Sakura, why does it have to hurt so much?" But before she could respond, Ayame startled everyone by speaking first. "Pain is connected to the love of the person that is lost. The more love you have for the person, the more pain exists at their loss. That is why it hurts so much. It is because you loved so much." "But how can I make it stop? How can I forget it?" Sakura cut in, "You will never forget Hinata, this I truly know." Tenten said, smiling slightly, "But talking about it may take the edge off." After declaring, "Ah true, but nothing helps like the comfort of some pure sugar," Ino took out the box of rolls and gave them to Hinata, who smiled slightly. They all chatted for a while before the box miraculously disappeared. Because it was so large, Hinata was able to consume half of it. Hinata made the decision to leave after feeling a little more relaxed. She felt 2 arms snatch into hers as she stood up. "Oh no, you don't," Sakura ordered as the 4 of them giggled and dragged a Hyuga girl who was refusing but not so refusing off into the village streets. Disappearing into the crowd to never be seen again, Ino said, "We aren't through with you quite yet, girl." "Oh, I see they disappeared to do whatever the hell girls do when they drag someone off like that. Your guess is as good as mine." Ah, how swiftly time goes by. Time leaps with occasional pauses. Knowing that her pain was natural and intended to be there made it a little easier for Hinata to live with herself, but it still hurt more than when she lost her mother all those years ago. It's hard to blame Hinata for never returning to her normal self. Many saw it as the loss of a unique soul. But her extreme kindness waned and she became more and more like her clan's ideal great heir. Her self-sacrificing tendencies, which are admirable for ninja but not for a clan heir, diminished along with her kindness. She was gradually becoming perfect for the clan, and they would have killed the demon brat much sooner if they had known the impact losing him would have had on her. Hinata wasn't seen grinning or even remotely joyful. For her, it was all about training and missions, but things were a little different behind her room's locked door. Sakura succeeded in getting her some bright orange clothing, one of his black and orange ensembles. which she would wear each night as she embraced her priceless journal before bed. Although she always knew that her dreams would end in pain, she had a tendency to smile while she slept because they would bring her back to the person she wanted to be with. Nevertheless, she would never wish the dreams away for the brief moment she spent with him. Other than Hinata's continued coldness to deal with her constant pain, a few more months passed, and the village appeared to be progressing more favorably. Only after returning for 4 months was the final Uchiha allowed to rejoin the ranks as a Chunin. He was discovering that, with the help of the copy ninja, he was approaching his final objective more and more. More things have changed, and there has been another jump of roughly 6 months, 9 months from the funeral. Even better than Sasuke's transformation into a Jonin is the fact that beneath his icy exterior, there was a human. To Sakura's delight, he formally asked to court her, demonstrating his humanity, and she couldn't argue. In addition to receiving what she had always desired, Sakura was elevated to the position of hospital chief, freeing Tsunade to concentrate more on her Hokage responsibilities. Sakura's smile never left her face when she realized that things couldn't get any better, but it would almost always turn ugly when she passed a particular dark-haired girl while out on a date with Sasuke. They all saw each other much less as the once young genins grew closer to adulthood. Although most people would argue that it might be too difficult to complete these missions, Shikamaru spent the majority of his time running missions to Suna. If he didn't, it would be even more difficult for him. Ino was frequently spotted at her family's flower shop, most recently with a Sasuke impersonator who seemed to be constantly sketching the flowers as they tried to have a conversation. And Shoji, well, he just kept stuffing his face and gaining weight. He's gotten farther away from anorexia. Shino was almost always away on clan business, which was said to be in fulfillment of an arranged marriage, so you could never find him anymore. Naturally, Kiba, like many other dogs, was primarily just pursuing any and all women for fun in between missions, and because his mother was pursuing him to find a new clan mate, even his mother's suggestion that he date Hinata was rejected more quickly than Jiraiya's approach with Tsunade because it was likely to elicit the same response. Then there's Hinata. The clan was pleased with her development, even though she was still very much a cold person. Lee comes next. Naturally, he was married to his training and discovered that he didn't really need women in his life. Besides, he reasoned that if Guy's young love interest didn't require a female companion, then why should his? This then leads us to Neji. In terms of the way his personality changed, he was obviously the most peculiar. Hinata grew warmer with each step he took. Of course, he wasn't walking down the street grinning and saying hello to everyone, but every now and then you would catch him glancing at his female teammate, and if you paid close attention, you might even catch them kissing. Since he was not permitted to court the heiress while she was still unmarried, their relationship was never formally established. Time passed in Iwa during all of this, of course it did. The new Wind Master, Ranta, was getting used to his new life as a nobleman. His chakra level stabilized around 6 months ago, and he hasn't skipped dinner since he needed a separating device made for him because of how proficient he was with the chakra amplifier weapon. His weapon looks like a sword hilt, and when chakra is pushed into it, it resembles a big blade. As is common with that kind of weapon, however, because he has so much chakra, he can split the hilt in two and create twin chakra swords. It seems that Ranta rose to prominence as a desirable man in the marriage industry. Because of his popularity, he currently has to turn down roughly 3 courtship requests every week. His performance on missions, which were known to everyone with access to the noble's files, was the main source of his success in that field. After finishing his training ahead of schedule, he began going on missions in the hopes of learning more about himself, but he was never successful. He deserved his reputation as a windmaster because, although there were still some excellent windjutsu in Iwa, he wasn't unfamiliar with many of them. He had a substantial cash collection from finishing 5C rank, 5B rank, 13A rank, and, with a team, 14A and 3S rank missions. Despite the fact that his travels left him with no recollection, the Wind Master has clearly been paying off because he has never been asked for so many missions since the last Secret War due to his extraordinary mission success. Konoha, April 18th from 017 ACT to noon, slowing down a bit, maybe no more big jumps. As is now customary, Hinata was on her way home from yet another successful mission when a branch member of her clan met her at the gate. According to the elder Hyuga member, Hinata-sama, your presence is requested in Hiyashi-sama's study. You are to go there immediately upon arrival. She responded quickly and firmly, fine. She made her way to the Hyuga estate and navigated the corridors until she reached her father's study door. She knocked hard, and the current clan head was there to greet her as she entered the spacious study. She saw that everyone from the clan council was gathered around the room at the moment. Hanabi was kneeling in the middle, and Hiyashi signaled her to stand beside her sister. Once she was positioned, she began speaking to the group. According to Hiyashi, Hinata, Hanabi, the council, and I have been in discussion this week on who to award the position of heir. We have extensively reviewed the efforts of each candidate through past actions to current, therefore upon fulfillment of standard Hyuga protocol we have chosen Hinata as heir. Congratulations, daughter. I am proud. Despite the fact that Haishi's declaration was exactly what Hinata had always wanted to hear, she felt nothing and was not happy about the acceptance she had always desired. Hinata said coldly, "Thank you, father. Elders, may I ask what the standard protocol you were referring to?" Hinata was clearly disgusted, but Hiyashi persisted, saying, "Yes, straight to business. I see. On your 17th birthday you will be presented with a choice of 4 potential men for your betrothal. Since there aren't any Hyuga members in your age range who are distant enough from you, we'll find one outside the clan. Within a few months, you'll have to pick one of the 4 to marry by the time you're 18, but you won't be able to claim the full title of heir until you have a strong Byakugan-wielding child of your own because you married outside the clan. If you can't have one by the time you're 23, you'll be replaced, and the title will pass to your sister because she already has a betrothal to a Hyuga. Do you understand your responsibilities, Hinata?" Hinata briefly recalled a dream in which she held a child with blonde hair and pale eyes, but she pushed it to the back of her mind before a blush or tears appeared. "Yes, father." Hinata and her sister left the study along with the other members of the council, leaving Hiyashi to his cunning thoughts. "Very well, you may retire to your room for the rest of the evening." Hiyashi takes the scroll of all eligible nobles and only finds 2 that would meet the requirements. "Now all I need to do is find some men that will be sterile to our bloodline." Given that there are only 2, the other 2 must be terrible matches, forcing her to choose one of them. After completing his plan, Hiyashi went to bed without noticing the dark shadow vanishing into the hallways while giggling to itself. With no way of conceiving an heir, Hanabi will be put to her rightful place and Hinata will be reduced to nothing. Take note of the final sentence. It's crucial. You'll see something similar again. Iwa, June 8th evening, 017 Ak. The tan-haired, gray-eyed Wind Master had just returned from a 2-week mission to find and kill 3 missing nins on a warm, clear summer night in Iwa. Although the mission was successful, Ranta was still a little upset that he had to use both of his twin swords to their fullest potential. However, no one has actually lived to witness the full power of his swords yet, except for the people he trained with. He entered the Cage's mansion, where he still resides, and was met by his regular assistant. "Ranto-sama, we have 7 more of the usual requests." That's more than usual. Anything special?" "Well, actually, yes. Is it Konoha or Konoha? Who really cares? It's not in English, so maybe I'll stick with Konoha. You have received a high-level request from Konoha for a December 27th meeting." "That is a little different. I guess I'll write the declination letter myself then." "Actually, Ranto-sama, this is a request that outranks your status because of the weak alliance between our 2 villages. Your presence is mandatory, but the clan mistress will have her choice between 4 possible men, so it shouldn't be too hard to avoid that. If you want, Santan-sama has been requested as well, so you'll have a bit of family company." "So, what do we know of this clan?" The Wind Master took notice of the statement. "Nothing much really, other than it is a bloodline clan." "Well, isn't that strange? For a bloodline clan, they would never want to recruit Santan since he has an anti-bloodline gene that would prevent the passing of the traits of a bloodline that would be disastrous for a clan that relies on their bloodline. It sounds like I should go just to at least figure that out. So then when should I leave?" "It is suggested that you get there about a month ahead of time to get a mandatory mental evaluation by the Hokage. You will then be under watch, so you won't be able to have unfair time with the mistress." Ranto nodded to indicate that he comprehended the information. "I guess it's settled then. We go to Konoha in 5 months. October 10th 017 Ak. Evening, Konoha, 3 months from last segment. The Yondaime died on October 10th in order to protect the village from the Kyuubi. It has been the only day for the past 16 years that the Hokage cancels all missions in remembrance of all the ninja who have died because of the significant losses on that day. Since it was also the birthday of one ninja who never rejoined the ranks, this day is slightly more painful for some of the ninja in the village. The group of people who truly knew him would get together each year since his passing, but for some reason, Hinata didn't have the same expression. This year, she had something else on her mind. Naturally, her closest friends and acquaintances noticed this look. The group's female members noticed that the heiress needed to talk about something, and typically it was related to the missing blonde. The women decided to take Hinata to a quiet part of town so they could talk. She obviously found it difficult to be left alone, but the Hokage's strength prevented her from escaping as he joined them. Tsunade asked, "So, tell us, Hinata, what has you further in the dumps than usual?" Hinata averted her gaze and responded rudely, "It really doesn't concern you." In her gentle, compassionate voice, Tsunade yelled, "How could anything that could interfere with missions be of no concern to me?" before gathering herself and trying again. Most of all, I feel like a mother to all of you. I've seen you all grow, cry and laugh together for many years. You know we all care for you, Hinata, and we hate to see the path you are going down. You have separated yourself from nearly everyone and have become an empty shell of what you once were. I have seen this occur more times than I have ever wanted, and it usually ends with a person's suicide. Her words created a solemn atmosphere in which nobody was willing to speak. Most people wouldn't talk about this ending, but it was a possibility. It was nearly silent when Hinata spoke. If suicide was an option, I would have taken it already. I have thought about it over a dozen times just to make my hurting stop. Normally, the women wouldn't be shocked if the girl thought about suicide once or twice, but since she had thought about it more than a dozen times, they were stunned and terrified for her. She shed tears once more, but the women were relieved that she would not kill herself because she never betrays her word. I am still here because I made a promise on his memory in his journal. He specifically asked me to promise him that I would live my life and try to be happy, and because of that promise, he is still keeping me alive even though he isn't here anymore. That does account for a lot of things, but what has changed so recently that has you down even more? Replied Sakura. Hinata chose to comply with their demands after glancing at the group and realizing she couldn't leave without spilling. It feels like I'm betraying his memory and it hurts me so much. Tenten asked, "What makes you feel like you are betraying him?" as the interrogation went on. "In a little over a year, I'm getting married." Ino jumped up and gave the dejected girl a hug without fully understanding the statement. When Ino realized what she was doing, she almost fell to the ground in shame. "Really, Hinata? That's wonderful. Who's the lucky man?" she asked. "I'm sorry." "No, it's okay. It really should be good news in normal cases, but my clan isn't normal since there isn't anyone of Hyuga decent near my age. I will have to choose from 4 hand-picked nobles from other lands, but I will only have 1 month to choose which I will marry, and then I'll have to be around him every day from then on." Once more without thinking, Ino exclaimed, "Only 1 month to find love?" "No, Ino. I think I can only love once. This will just be something I do for the clan, nothing more." Ayame told her, almost as if she had witnessed an abusive relationship before. "Well, that may be true, but don't think it doesn't matter. If you pick someone that doesn't respect you, you could end up being sexually abused since you will still need to have sex with him to have a child. You will need at least a good man that wouldn't hurt you." When Hinata realized that, she began to cry once more as she sobbed. Her icy demeanor collapsed, revealing a glimpse of the true Hinata caught in the grief. "Hey, don't worry, when they come in for their mental evaluation we'll check out some other things for you since men tend to hide their true intentions until it is too late. They can't hide themselves from a Yamanaka." Ino stated this in a boastful tone. The women all gave Hinata a supportive hug before returning to the location where the others were still present to continue enjoying themselves as much as possible. "Thank you, Ino. All you guys mean a lot to me. I'd never get through any of this without you." Iwa, November 29th morning, 017 AC. "Well, Kenji-san, I guess we should get going for Konoha. It'll be quite the trip. Hey Santon, get your womanizing ass down here." Kenji, the Tsuchikage, commented, "Well Ranto, my boy, try to keep him in line, okay?" "Yeah, I'll try." At that moment, Santon ran alongside him into the street. "I'm here already. I just needed to tell a few people I was leaving." The Wind Master remarked, "Yeah, whatever. Why did you pack so light? We'll be gone for a month at least." He elbowed Ranto and said, Not like I'll need many clothes where we are going, know what I mean." Santon had to catch up with Ranto as he said goodbye and left the village, saying, "Whatever, see you later, Kenji." Their journey from Iwa was comparatively uneventful. The two distinguished travelers had an easy time and encountered no problems. They had a great time because they didn't stop except to eat or sleep. Santon was a little annoyed by this, but he knew he should keep his mouth shut. The sight of more guards than usual caused Santon to halt as the gates of Konoha came into view. Santon waited for a response, but he simply ignored it and was nearly at the gate. "Hey Ranto, it seems like security has been stepped up since the last time we were here on a mission. Do you think that is because of our arrival?" she asked. By the time they arrived at the gate and encountered the guards, he had caught up to Ranto after he had taken off. "Travelers, state your business and produce your identification." A rather irate-looking ninja was called in. Ranto and Santon produced their identification documents and their invitation to the guards, saying, "I am Ranto here with Hitaro Santon hailing from Iwa under invitation." They were given their IDs and invitation back, and they followed the guard as he led them through the village until they reached the office of Tsunade, the 5th Hokage. "Well, everything seems to be in order here. One of the guards will show you to the Hokage." Her face changed from the happy greeting to one of more serious business as she said, "Greetings delegates from Iwa, I am Tsunade and welcome to Konoha. I hope you enjoy your stay. It is protocol, so Tsunade wasn't lying about anything. Unfortunately, since this is an extended stay, you each must go through a series of questions and even a minor interrogation to be sure you aren't spies. I apologize for this, but it is protocol. Unaware of the reason behind his inability to control the urge to call her Ba-chan, Ranto responded, "Understood, Hokage-sama." They decided to leave after the conversation ended and locate room 2C. Very well, go find room 2C and wait there until you are summoned individually for questioning. After almost an hour of waiting in the large room, a slender, blonde woman arrived to welcome them. With a charming yet menacing grin, Ino took hold of Santon's arm and dragged him from the room. "Hello, my name is Ino, and I'll be helping in your interrogation." Ranto made the decision to unwind and possibly take a quick nap since he anticipated that the interrogation would take some time. After what felt like only a few moments, he was startled out of his slumber when the door slammed open and a battered and bruised Santon fell to the floor. Ranto stood up and stepped over his friend, asking, "If that is minor interrogation, then what is normal?" "That actually wasn't caused by the interrogation, that was from him making a pass at me and asking if I would join him at a local hotel," Ino replied indignantly. She nodded and escorted him down a staircase that led beneath the Hokage Tower, saying, "That sounds about right for him, shall we get going then?" They went past a few rooms where you could hear screams coming from them and down a dim hallway. He dismissed it as none of his business and trailed the blonde into a room that looked more like a psychologist's office, complete with soft furnishings. To Rantu's surprise, there was an audience in the room as well. In addition to the Hokage, he saw a silver-haired man with half of his face hidden behind a mask, and a woman with red eyes. With a tone that was less than pleased, Ranto questioned, "What do I owe the pleasure of all your presences?" "Zip it, kid, I don't like the reason you are here," Tsunade, clearly enraged, continued. "You see, the female you are here for means a lot to us in the village. Personally, I believe she should have been with someone else, but his time in this world was cut short. We really don't like how her stupid clan has played matchmaker, bringing in people from outside the village, so it is our duty to know everything about you. You are the last of the four here, and so far we are disgusted with this generation of men. You don't appear to be any different than those others, so I would send all of you bastards back where you came, but I can't do that, so let's get this over with." Without even the smallest hint of humor, he told them, "Have fun figuring me out. I'm positive I'm not normal." Tsunade activated the surveillance equipment and began reading his facts to the camera for the record, saying, "Okay, Mr. Confident, let's get started." Tsunade raised an eyebrow in curiosity and read on. "Ranto approximate age 17, birthday is unknown." If everyone in the room hadn't been seated, they would have been shocked to hear, "Current noble of Iwa. Mission stats, 5C, 20B, 37A, and 2S rank missions with no failed missions." Speaking out of turn, the masked ninja asked, "How does one complete so many high-rank missions without a single D rank?" "Kakashi, you shouldn't interrupt like that, but I am curious as well, so please answer the question," instructed Tsunade. His response drew more astonished glances because he has accomplished more missions in a single year than most people have in their lifetimes. "Fine. It's an easy answer. The first mission I remember going on was about a year ago, and I've been doing missions non-stop since I was considered a jonin at that time, but I am not an official jonin." Tsunade inquired, "What do you mean by the first mission you remember?" "Simply put, I don't have memories beyond about 2 years ago. I have been running missions to find out about where I come from so I may return to my village, but I have found nothing." "That seems way too convenient. Would you mind being subjected to a memory viewing jutsu? It will allow us to see into your memories and validate your claim," asked the Hokage. "I get a strange feeling that I don't really have that choice, but go ahead. If you find out anything interesting, let me know." The curvaceous woman ordered, "Very well, and you were correct. You didn't have a choice, Ino. You may proceed." The blonde nodded, made a few hand gestures, and entered the Wind Master's thoughts. To the Mindwalker's great surprise, Ino experienced the typical vertigo that comes with acclimating to the mindscape, but it seemed to be brief and unopposed by his mind. Ino kept going into his head until she had gathered all the data she required, at which point she let go of her jutsu and went back to her own head. Tsunade noticed that Ino wanted to say more but was genuinely at a loss for words. "Hokage-sama, it seems that he is telling the truth. I see no reason for concern with his presence in Konoha." The two jonin reluctantly left the room, leading Ranto back the way they came. After they had left, Ino closed the door and turned to face the Hokage, knowing what she was going to ask her. "Very well, then, I see no reason to keep you here further. Ranto, I hereby permit you access to Konoha as a liaison from Iwa. Kakashi, Kurenai, please escort our guest on your way out." "Ino, what was it you saw in there that you aren't telling me?" Well, it's his mind. I've never seen anything so strange. Everybody has certain things in their minds that simply weren't there. Additionally, people typically keep certain memories private, like secrets, but his mind is open to everyone. Let me explain how almost everyone thinks. Though the general outline is the same, the mindscape varies depending on the individual. Whether it's a vast field or a large room, everything is an open space, and the larger the main room, the greater the intelligence. The person's personality is reflected in this main room. Shikamaru always saw an open sky with clouds, while Hinata always saw a field of flowers and lush grasses. This space will now contain a variety of memories that are not easily grouped by emotion and are organized like a filing cabinet that adopts the local characteristics. For example, the flowers in Hinata's are like the cabinet's drawers. Large doors at the area's edges then lead to the smaller rooms where memories are arranged according to internal emotions. Anger, love, happiness, sadness, and secrets all typically have their own space. Rarely, special rooms can even be added to the main feeling rooms. For example, Sasuke's room of hate leads from the anger room, which exists only to contain his hatred for his brother. The one that connects to the love room, a place created when a person's love for another person is so intense that it requires its own room, is one of the many other combinations that create more of these special rooms, but I have only seen it once. These unique spaces are associated with the person they love, and the two are typically regarded as soulmates. People who are meant to be together. I'm not sure what it means, but Hinata has a mental image of one of these rooms that indicates she is meant to be with that guy, but since she was never able to, it should be impossible. In any case, mindscapes operate in this manner, but Ranta is an exception. The memories that belong in his main room are few and should be in the file cabinets, but instead they are in boxes that seem to be waiting to be filed. His main room is dark but not dark. There are no other rooms like usual, and it resembles an unfinished mind. This essentially indicates that he has neither true feelings nor secrets. He simply isn't logical. That is really intriguing. We should watch him closely because, based on what you said, or didn't say, he will probably be the one selected because he isn't as perverted as the others to let Hinata make her own decision. We won't tell her this just yet. However, given that Hiyashi knew she would pick him, I might need to investigate why he personally picked 3 womanizers and 1 mediocre person. Okay, you can leave now and head home. When Tsunade took out the sake to calm her mental turmoil, Ino walked out of the room and said, "Thank you, Hokage-sama." Mid-morning, December 27, 17 AK. Konoha. The following month went by slowly, and the 4 guests were only permitted to leave their homes on the few days and most nights that coincided with Hinata's absence. For the most part, even when they were permitted to leave, they kept their distance from one another to prevent them from trying to kill each other, just in case today was the day that the 4 were to meet with the young woman, and being cooped up in a room for a month was causing some anxiety. All right, in a few hours I won't be imprisoned like this. I have to do something or I'll lose my mind. Before he heard a knock at his door, Ranta screamed. "Dude, it's time to move on. Everyone is preparing as it is already 10 in the morning." Through the unopened door, Santon called out. They brought in formal attire that was approved for the party in the common room. "Okay, I'm leaving. You don't have to make such a big deal out of it." And he was the one yelling. Santon hurried off to the common room to get his clothes, with Ranto trailing him by a few minutes. When Ranto entered the large room, there was utter chaos, with the 3 other guys flinging clothes around and fighting over who would be with the maiden first. Dirty bastards. Each time one of the children chose a garment, the others would shout that they saw it first and then grab hold of it, tearing it in 3 different ways. To date, the 10 items that the children had torn were completely worthless, and the 4 servants who had been hired to assist them were all staring at their terrible behavior, with one of the servants repeatedly muttering, "The master won't be pleased." "What's up with the fools, Bossan?" he asked, pointing to the mayhem, which startled her out of her reverie. "Oh, I apologize for not listening. Are you the circus's last member?" She was clearly not happy with what was happening in the room. "It appears that I am the first of the civilized people when the idiots are finished. Do you think you could send for me? I like my clothes to be undamaged. I'll be in my room until then." Not really waiting for a response, Ranto turned and went back to his sleeping quarters, surprising the elderly woman with his selflessness and making her realize right away that he wasn't like the others. He was shocked to see the elderly woman so quickly after closing his room door when he heard a knock. "Are they finished yet? I assumed it would take at least another 20 minutes. "I'm sorry, but it's not. I apologize, but where are my manners?" She smiled and took a small package from behind her. "I have 1 garment I kept aside to sell at my shop since it turned out so nicely, but since you seem to be well-mannered, I feel you just might be able to appreciate this more than the others." She took the garment out of the package, revealing a gray male formal kimono with flames licking up the sides in black and orange accents. "I'm sure it is quite colorful. but I can only see in shades of gray, so I won't be able to appreciate it like I should. I think it will look great on you. Silly kid, you don't need to see colors to appreciate craftsmanship. Ranta took the outfit and gave the woman a small bow of appreciation. The woman then left him to dress, and it took another half hour for the others to do the same. At around noon, a member of the Hyuga branch showed up and escorted the 4 young men through the village to the Hyuga manor. December 27017 Act 1-2. Midday, Hyuga Manor. It's almost time. Hinata-sama, are you prepared? As he entered, he could only smile while glancing at his cousin. You can come in if you want, Neji ni-san. Her dark blue hair cascaded down her shoulders and ended at the middle of her back, showcasing the contrast to her sophisticated white multi-layered kimono with lavender flowers printed along the hems of the ensemble. You look quite beautiful, Hinata-sama. I am grateful to Neji ni-san. I suppose I must leave now, don't I? Without displaying any emotion, Hinata got up from her desk and started to leave her room. You're not going to leave here in that manner, are you? At least I know you are still inside that cold shell, Hinata-sama. Neji took her arm and gently dragged her out of her room towards the party, and when she reached the top of the stairs leading down to where the party room was almost full of people, the crowd somehow calmed down without anyone indicating to do so. Everyone looked to her, except Ranta. Waiting for the announcement, Hinata looked down with a hint of disappointment, thinking that something was wrong with her appearance, but then she saw what was in her arms. Introducing Miss Hyuga, the Hyuga clan's heiress. We are all honored to be celebrating your 17th birthday with you. So welcome. Hinata bowed slightly to the announcer before descending the stairs with Neji still at her side. I don't want to stay here any longer, ni-san, she whispered in his ear, feeling extremely nervous about the situation. I can't marry without love, it feels wrong. Well, before you get married, try to love one of them, okay? It's not that easy. I don't think anything is left after pouring all of my love into another. You might be correct, Hinata-sama, but you won't know until you give it a shot. Additionally, you must complete this task for the clan. I understand then. Could you at least tell me something about the guys? In an attempt to slow the descent of the stairs, she asked. I can share my knowledge with you. Water Country is where Hyson hails from. He comes from one of the wealthiest non-bloodline clans and has the best deception and stealth skills in the village. It's unclear if Ashton, the son of a grass country daimyo, is a ninja at all. It is unknown why Santon, the son of the current Tsuchikage, has never applied for Jonin rank. He is currently categorized as a special chunin. Ranta comes last since he only made an appearance with unusual talents around 2 years ago. Nothing is known about his past. He and the Cage currently reside in Iwa, but he shows his loyalty to no village by wearing a blank forehead protector only because he is an elemental master of wind, and elemental masters are regarded as such by their laws. Is he recognized as an Iwa noble? There's not much to go on there in a month. How am I supposed to pick one? You could always let your friends choose for you. They may be able to pick out the best. I don't know, something just doesn't feel, Hinata began, but her father interrupted, preventing her from finishing. Hinata, you're wasting your time right here. Given that you will be marrying one of your suitors, you ought to go see them and spend some time with them. He essentially gave an order. Yes, father. Hiyashi was left to enjoy his cunning plan as Hinata slowly made her way to the location of the suitors. Good luck, Hinata. 3 perverts and an emotionless windmaster. I was expecting 2 perverts, but this should be absolute torture for you to find a husband and then you'll never bear a child with the bloodline. Did you get a hold of her, Ranto? She's really attractive to believe that one of us will receive that man. I'll at least get a piece of that even if I don't end up with her. How about you, friend? Santon turned to face his friend, who was not listening. What, Santon? Do you say something? I just wanted to get out of here, so I was meditating. Is there any chance they would let me go before the end of the month? Are you insane? Are you even familiar with her appearance? Nope, nor do I really care. Well, you should. She's coming this way. We should go meet her, bro. No, I'm doing fine here. Ranta waved him away, suggesting, go do whatever it is you do. He was back in his meditation, so Santon asked him, dude, I really wonder if you even like girls. He didn't respond, so he shrugged and hurried to introduce himself to the other guys. He kissed her hand and said, my name is Hozenki Ashton, Miss Hyuga. It is a privilege and an honor to meet such a beautiful maiden. Hinata feigned a smile and went on to the next man who would attempt to outdo the first, saying, thank you for the compliment. He snaps his fingers and a bouquet of flowers appears. My name is Chimera Hyson, and these are for you. She accepts the flowers with a slight smile. Miss Hyuga-sama, I am pleased and humbled to be in the presence of such beauty. Almost robotically, she said, thank you Hyson-san, the flowers are quite elegant. I am also honored to see such a stunning woman. Miss Hyuga-sama, your elegance really makes you stand out from the others. Hello, I'm Yoshiro Santon. She forced another smile, but it was much harder because she was annoyed that all three of them were lying, and she didn't have much time to do anything before they dragged her to a nearby couch and began talking about themselves to impress her. Your compliments are well received, Santon-san, she said. Note that the guys only call her Miss Hyuga and don't know her first name. What is wrong with these guys? I've only met them an hour ago and already they're trying to make passes at me. What do they really expect? Hinata shuddered when she considered what exactly they wanted and was equally disgusted. These three are weirding me out. Wait, three? Where's the other one? Hinata was there for perhaps an hour, politely nodding her head and trying to smile while brushing their hands off her legs and shoulders. Hinata got up and hurried out of the awkward situation she was in to find Neji, who she found with ease. Excuse me guys, I need to go freshen up a bit. Neji-ni-san, are they all present? They're all jerks, and I've only met three. If the last one isn't any better, I'll kill them all myself. Really? Earlier, they were all present. Which have you yet to meet? I believe it is that Ranta guy. Neji looked around the party until he found the person, saying, well, you had better go meet him before the party ends or your father will be quite upset. He is the one over there with the gray outfit with the flames. Hinata nodded slightly before following his lead to locate the final man, finding her target sitting in a chair facing away from the party, clearly uninterested, so she made the decision to go and make her presence known to him, at least so she had met them all. He was facing away from her when she softly said, excuse me, sir. Without opening his eyes, he said, no thank you, I don't need any refreshments. Naturally, this infuriated the young Hyuga, who spoke again with greater authority. He realized who she was, a servant, when she said, I would like to thank you for traveling so far at my father's request. He quickly stood up and turned to face her, where she was speaking, and began to apologize. As soon as he saw her, he stopped talking and looked into her eyes, managing to make her blush from the attention, but he was blind to the red color he saw. I'm sorry I didn't, he said. She pushed it aside and spoke, thinking, wait, he's making me blush? No one has that power over me anymore. Maybe I'm getting sick. Is there something wrong with my appearance? Her question brought him back to the present. You seem to be staring at me. He thought, oh, and that dark silky blue hair, but then something hit him, allowing him to see her in full color. Sorry, my apologies, Hinata-sama. I just got lost in those pale lavender eyes of yours. Hinata noticed that he was still staring, but his expression had changed to one of surprise. Ranta-san, is there a pee problem? Hinata was furious with herself. She blushed around him at first, and now she was stuttering again. She couldn't possibly be feeling anything for this guy already, could she? Her thoughts on this were put to rest when he spoke again. She couldn't understand why this guy would do those things that were always attributed to her one love. Hiyashi, who was listening in, cut her off with an irate expression before she could respond. Hinata-sama, are you alright? You seem to be awfully red. Have you ever seen or spoken to my daughter before, Ratu-san? His tone betrayed his obvious anger as he asked. No, Lord Hyuga, I haven't ever seen or talked to Hinata before. How did you find out her name, then? She is not permitted to mention her name today, and it will be kept a secret until tomorrow, when the formal courtship begins. I have no idea why I knew her name. Ranta glanced over to where the other three suitors were and saw their irate faces staring at them. Hinata-sama, I think you should probably go back to those three idiots, Ranta said. I have never seen her before, but when she just appeared, my mind saw her and her name just popped into my head. Hiyashi sensed no trace of a lie, and no one had deceived his eyes, so Hiyashi just accepted it and walked away from them. They appear to be quite upset that I've been taking up your time alone. She actually grinned sincerely after saying, well, you could accompany me over there. You have just as much right to my attention as they do. That is all right. It looks like I'm getting a headache. Before I can deal with those idiots, I'll need to meditate for a while. We'll talk again. Beautiful. Ranta sat back down as his kind words caused her face to flush once more, and she turned back to the three vultures. Damn, how is she in color? I've never seen color more, so is why do I keep seeing her in my mind? Why can't I get her out of my head? Her kind eyes, elegant face, her soft supple. Hey, get a hold of yourself. I need to figure this out. She may be a part of my forgotten life, and that is why I see her in color and why I felt something weird inside me. Ranta continued to meditate on that for the remainder of the party, but her relief was brief as the five of them were led to a private room to talk with Hiyashi and two of the clan elders. I've called everyone here so we can talk about the terms of this engagement. It will be somewhat of a competition. She may ask for a shorter meeting at the end of each day to discuss anything she wants, but you will each have an equal amount of minimum time with her. She can choose her husband at any point during the month, but if she hasn't made a decision by the end of the month, she will be compelled to. Each of you will draw a number to determine how long you have to take her out. The times are 9 a.m. to noon, noon to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., and 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Hinata was upset that her whole day had been taken away from her, but she was powerless to do much about it. The numbers were all drawn, and the winners were Hyson number 2, Santon number 1, Ashton number 3, and Ranto number 4. Now that everything has been arranged, you will all say good night to my daughter before being shown to your rooms for the duration of your visit. Hiyashi and the elders left the room after he was done, leaving the 5 of them alone, seeing a chance to make a lasting impression. 3 of the 4 surrounded the heiress, telling her how beautiful she was, how they would think of her while they slept, and how they were looking forward to their date tomorrow. They all said the same thing, and then they left, leaving Rantu and Hinata alone for a while. I'm sorry for the idiots. I hope they didn't cause too much discomfort. Sleep well, Hinata-sama. I'd wish you a happy birthday, but after seeing those idiots it would be a waste. I'm T, thank you, but see, could you not call me Sama? Our Ranto-san. We have the same status, she stammered, blushing. The dark-haired girl was left with a lot of questions and a constant flush as Ranto left the room and was led to his sleeping quarters, of course Hinata-chan. Hinata left the complex to look for her answers elsewhere. Why'd I stutter around him? I'm acting like I did around Naruto. And he even brings out those feelings in me again. He can't possibly replace him, but it just feels so weird, almost like it is him. It's only 8:30. Sakura will still be awake. I can ask her for some advice. Even though Ranto had left earlier, Santon managed to catch up with him outside his branch house room. Hey bro, you see now? She's a looker. Man, I will be ecstatic if she is even half as attractive in bed. Don't get your hopes up. She doesn't seem to be one to behave in that manner. Come on. Man, I always tell you that the bedroom is the best way to win a woman's heart. Keep it in mind. It's sound advice. When you were younger, were you dropped on your head, Santon? Santon was unable to respond because the Wind Master vanished in an instant. Hinata's party is on the same day as December 27th at 017 AC at 9:30 p.m. After a long day of healing, a certain pink-haired medic was dragging herself home down the street outside the Konoha hospital. She began hearing things because she was so exhausted, but then she heard the sound again. Sakura-san. A voice called quietly. She became alert and turned to face the source of the voice, knowing it wasn't her imagination. Oh Hinata. Sakura was taken aback to see a tiny smile in place of her customary icy demeanor. What's wrong, or right, with you? I haven't seen you smiling in years. Surprised, the Hyuga exclaimed. Huh, what, I'm smiling. Yes you are, and you might even be happy. Sakura was cut off before she could finish her sentence. Hinata blurted, almost excitedly, I really need to talk to you. Really now, what about? Quietly, she answered, well, it's feelings and stuff. The two nodded quickly and walked silently to Sakura's house, saying, oh, we should go to my house. Sakura made some tea as soon as she entered the house to calm them down. Sakura returned to her seat with the tea and began to ask questions. So Hinata, how did your party go? That is what I wanted to talk to you about. No one took advantage of you, right? Hinata began. Well, not exactly, but was interrupted. What do you mean by not exactly? I'll kill them all if they touched you improperly. In an attempt to calm herself so that she could carry on the conversation, Sakura counted backwards from 10, quiet Sakura, you could wake the whole village. As Hinata sipped her tea and went on with her story, Sakura winced at the thought of, 3 of the guys father brought in are complete jerks. They continually made passes at me. It was like having 3 Jiraiya's around me for the night. But that isn't why I wanted to talk to you. Sakura set down her cup and asked, what exactly did you want to talk to me about? What do you know about the guy Ranto? Huh, Ranto. Yes, the Wind Master from Iwa father sent for. I'm pretty sure you have overheard the Hokage talking about him during your training. Sakura grinned, understanding that this was the root of her issue and the reason behind her smile. Well, I might know something. Why do you ask? She said. Well, I know nothing about him. He stays quiet and secluded from the others. Hinata blushed in response to her question, but she remained silent. Is he handsome? She asked. Hinata nodded in agreement and resumed her conversation, saying, I see, so that is why you want to talk. He seems so kind, but the problem I have is when I'm around him I blush and stutter like I would around him. I'm so confused now. When I look at Ranto he stirs up feelings I only had for him. I don't know if my feelings are truly for this guy or if he just reminds me of Naruto. It's so confusing. Hinata returned to her chair to drink her tea. I see, what would you do if those feelings are directed for him? I really don't know, Sakura. Hinata cried a little at the remark and gave it some thought. If I can prove to you that those feelings are indeed for this Ranto guy, will you promise to grab a hold of that feeling and never let it go like the last one? She asked. With a sly smile, Sakura took Hinata by the arm and dragged her to the door. I promise I will, she said. Come on, we're going to Ino's, but why? Hinata squeaked as she was dragged out the door and down the street a few blocks, stopping outside Ino's house. She can see your feelings in memories, so she can see where your feelings are directed. Before a light came on, Sakura began tossing rocks at her window. Hey Ino pig, wake up, she called back. Shut it forehead, I'm trying to sleep, and shut off the light once more. They heard nothing until the front door flew open and the long-haired blonde was revealed. It's Hinata that needs help, pig. Well, why didn't you say so? Get in here, you two, it's cold out here. The three of them hurried inside, shut the door, and sat down to talk about the earlier exchange. So let me get this straight, you would like information on your Windmaster, and you want to make sure what you feel is for him, right? Sakura grinned beside Hinata as she replied, basically. Sakura and Hinata stared in confusion as Ino said, well, my guess is that you know almost as much about him as he does. You see, he has no memories except for the past 2 years, which is all training and fighting. But something else that is weird is he is completely colorblind. Hinata was taken aback by that assertion. Are you sure? He made a comment about the color of my eyes. He said they were slightly lavender, and what else are you hiding? That is strange. Everything was black and white last time I was in his mind, but apparently I can't hide anything from you. In his mind the memory rooms aren't there even when a person has amnesia. The rooms still exist, the memories are just darkened from what I see. He may not be able to feel anything like happiness and love, but that is still all speculation. Sakura questioned, what does that mean? Well, I think that until he gains those rooms back he can't have feelings. Basically it means he is emotionless. With concern, Hyuga questioned, but how can we get them back? I don't know, but I'll need to check him again to see if any progress was made in that area until then. Ino grinned cruelly, let's see where your feelings point. Before Hinata could object, Ino took Sakura's hand, and the three girls sagged back in their seats. If a room could be described as such, it was stunning. The expansive openness of the flowery meadow, which was bordered by large trees, was a display of her intelligence. The doors to the rooms of emotion-related memories were located in the largest of the trees. Ino pig. Where the hell are we? Easy forehead. This is Hinata's mindscape, the representation of her memories and feelings. As you can see, she has the most calming mind created by her gentleness. Well, yeah, but since when could you bring another person here with you? I learned it about half a year ago. Anyways, since all minds usually have the same setup, I'll be your guided tour. Normal memories are found in the flowers in this field. You just touch one and it opens into a file cabinet. The specific memories are in the rooms behind those doors in the trees. We will be going to her love door over there. As Ino escorted her to the door, Sakura inquired, what is that fancy door next to it? That would be the rarest of all special rooms, a room containing memories of a soulmate. From what I have seen, Hinata is the only one in Konoha that has one of these rooms. Of course, inside this room are all the memories she has shared with Naruto. So all we need to do is go into her love room and see if this Ranto guy is in there. The two kunoichi entered the room, which was almost the same as the larger one with the multicolored flowers, and began looking through the memories right away. That's the simple way to look at it. It seems from the memories they discovered that she hasn't experienced love in a long time, but their search for any information about Ranto turned up nothing. Well, I guess she really doesn't love him. Sakura, ever the nosy one, stopped Ino as she was about to go. Say, Ino, have you ever wondered what exactly Hinata saw in him? With a smug smile, the blonde said, you know, forehead, I've wondered that myself. Care to check it out, our little secret? You're on. As they walked into the room, they saw the same verdant meadow, but the sun was at the exact moment when the field was tinted orange and all of the flowers were yellow. Well, I guess for her orange is the color of love, from who she loved. I guess that is fitting, said Sakura. The first memory Hinata had of the blonde boy was in the first file they opened after entering. Naruto, around age 7. The image of a young, blonde child running replaced the memory. He kept checking behind him as he ran until he reached a peaceful park and took a seat to relax. A girl with pale eyes noticed the intrusion and her cheeks flushed as she gazed at the boy. Hinata-sama, what is it? Her Hyuga guard inquired. Disregarding her intense gaze and faint flush, the roughly 30-year-old guard looked around, noticed the blonde boy, and approached him angrily. Both memory viewers recoiled as the Hyuga charged forward and struck the young boy with the Jiyuken, knocking him to the ground. You demon brat. You have no right to be here, Hyuga said. As he cleaned his hands and turned back to the now crying girl, the elderly Hyuga declared, I've taken care of the intruder, he shouldn't be bothering us ever again. Why? She exclaimed satisfied. The Hyuga guard picked up the sobbing girl and carried her away, saying, he scared you. Now he won't be bothering a single person again. Abruptly, there was a shout from behind. The young blonde ran off, leaving a little girl with tears in her eyes and a broad smile. Hey you white-eyed bastard, go screw yourself. When I become Hokage, you'll be sorry, her words said. Sakura yelled, that bastard tried to kill him, he was barely 7. Sakura called out from the other side of the room after searching through a few thousand memories. Sakura, it didn't look like he tried for a moment, I think he was dead. Let's see if we can find something a bit happier. You look to the left, I'll look to the right. Hey Ino. Do you think Hinata was a stalker? Since she started at the academy she knows everything that happened to him and even followed him home many times. No, this is Hinata we're talking about. I bet she was just trying to build up the courage to talk to him. After a short while, Ino called out for Sakura to examine what she had discovered. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Sakura halted her activity and rushed to Ino's side, saying, Hey Sakura, I think I found something that isn't supposed to happen. The Wind Master guy is in this room, 2 people can't share a room like this. Sakura questioned, what does that mean then? After discovering what she had come for, Ino released the jutsu, and the 3 of them regained consciousness a few minutes later. Well, I guess it means that she loves him like she did Naruto. And I mean exactly like him. This shouldn't happen. I need to ask my parents about this. It should be impossible. Ino exclaimed with joy. Well Hinata, it looks like you do have feelings for this guy. Yep. Looks like you can't let this one slip through your fingers like you promised. Sure. Thanks. Hinata got up to go, her emotions jumbled, but Ino called out just before she could leave. With a slight wave, Hinata acknowledged her and left for her house. Hinata, make sure you bring Ranta by the Hokage Tower sometime soon for a follow-up exam. December 28, 017 AK. Konoha. The dates, for the young heiress, this day was an absolute torment. Having breakfast at a fancy restaurant and a bouquet of lilies to start the day, Santon took a quick stroll in the neighborhood park before, accidentally, grabbing her behind. Hyson took her to a classy restaurant for lunch, where they had a pleasant conversation. He then tried to kiss her but was slapped across the face, cutting down on the amount of time he spent with her. Ashton then took her out to dinner at another fancy restaurant, took her for a walk around the city, and then walked her back to the Hyuga Manor. However, he stumbled on something and tried to steady himself by grabbing her shoulder, but when he failed, he got a nice big handful of something else. Hinata knew she had one more date that might be better, but she was mad and wanted the day to be over. Let's eliminate all of those idiots. I had to promise you Naruto-kun. But why? When she ran into her next date, her mind was completely blanked out. It would have been easier to just disappear. With less excitement, she said, sorry, I guess you're ready for your date? Oh, it's that time already? I guess I just lost time waiting for you, he responded. She blushed uncontrollably and asked, you were waiting for me? Yeah, I guess I was. For some reason I couldn't get you out of my mind, but what has you so preoccupied? She said sadly, well, I was just thinking about someone. I don't want to pry, but can you talk about him? She swiftly defended, what makes you certain it's a him? Easy, I saw it in your eyes. After giving it some thought, Ranto said, I see, I will tell you if you tell me one secret about you that I don't know, and I know quite a bit from talking with Ino. Well, I guess you drive a hard bargain. You will make a perfect clan head. As they continued their conversation, the 2 of them left the manor and entered the streets. Thank you, now about that secret of yours. Well, since you talked to Ino, you know everything I know except for what I just found out. I believe you may be the key to my past. With no emotion, Hinata questioned, is this a line or something? No, what I mean is that I can't see any colors, but for some reason you are in full color. I can't tell you what color anything is around me, but I can tell you the color of everything you're wearing and the color of your hair. Hinata pulls the neck of her shirt down over her shoulder, revealing her bra strap. Well, I think you are colorblind from talking to Ino, but I have yet to believe that you can see me in color. You could have gotten details from your buddies, but I can test that with something I'm sure no one saw. What color is my bra, then, if you can see me in color? He was momentarily speechless at her audacious move. With a blush that matched hers, he responded, it is pale lavender like your eyes. I'll believe you for the time being, but you'll have to come to the Hokage Tower tomorrow for a follow-up examination, and you'll be sorry if I discover that you lied to me in any case. I suppose you deserved your information. Her smile darkened as she confided in him about her sadness. His name was Naruto. He was a proud and resolute man, but even with a broad smile, there was sadness in his eyes. He aspired to be recognized by the village and become the Hokage. He had the sweetest heart and would sacrifice himself for the people who made him sad. There was a power within him that, if he chose to use it, would destroy the entire village and most likely the entire known world, but he kept it subdued. People detested him because of his power. Even though he should have been viewed as a hero, he was able to make the lives of those few who bothered to know him better despite all of his prosecution. Even though I only managed to love him virtually, I think he was my soulmate. Hinata's eyes welled up with tears as she recalled those details. I never got to tell him how much I loved him before he died, bringing one of his few friends back to the village. I apologize for asking, but I believe I know exactly what you need for today. You're a ninja, aren't you? As he uncontrollably wiped away some of her tears, he asked. Through her tears and the blush that was starting to form, she forced herself to say, "Why yes, I'm a chunin." "That is ideal. Wouldn't a spar help you decompress? I'm sure those jackasses have been annoying you." He smiled slightly as he asked. In an attempt to conceal her excitement from a good spar, she said, "I don't want to spoil your plans for the night." "I didn't have any plans, so it's okay. This is the current plan, as I typically make plans while on the go." Hinata led Ranta to her preferred training location so that their spar could start. "I guess it is okay. I needed to train anyways." When they arrived, Hinata immediately assumed a fighting stance and waited for Ranta to do the same. He was perplexed when he did not, but he called out, "I'm ready, Hinata." They began to warm up by throwing small punches and hits to each other, gradually increasing the speed and force of their blows to get ready for the actual match. Now that they were completely relaxed, it was time to get serious. "Hinata, if you're ready, I think you should activate your Byakugan so we can really begin." "Are you sure you're that talented? Don't underestimate me." Byakugan. Her eyes widened, and her face bulged with veins, indicating that her dojutsu had been activated. "No, I wasn't underestimating you. I just thought I should warn you before I do this." Ranto moved so swiftly that he even disappeared from Hinata's view until she felt someone tapping on her shoulder while hiding in her blind spot. She is so scary and pretty at the same time with those eyes, he thought before forcing that thought back into his mind. How? Outside of the clan and a select few, no one is aware of that weakness, she thought aloud. You got me. I simply knew it was a weak point, but I'm not sure how. In any case, will you attack or will you just stand there? The Jayuken. I need to stay away from her hands. Hint. He never studied Hyuga techniques, but he knew of the Jayuken and the blind spot by coincidence. Ranto ducked and dodged each strike she threw and countered when he could with his new speed. He vanished again and threw out a flurry of punches, amazed at the increase in speed and agility she was now displaying. His fighting style is just as unpredictable as Naruto's, but he is much faster. Amazing. Hinata nearly took a kick to the head before she jolted out of her reverie to avoid it. How are you doing with deflecting chakra weapons, Hinata? You were amazing, he yelled from a safe distance, and in return he received a smile that said, bring it on. Ranto pulled out his hilt and channeled chakra into it, bringing forth a translucent katana blade. My blade has never taken such a refined form, it's almost perfect, Ranto said, inspecting the blade in slight amazement before charging forward with a downward slash to make sure it wouldn't make contact with the girl. Hinata managed to evade the attack, but managed to be flown through the air. Her Byakugan revealed to her that she wasn't thrown into the air by chakra alone, but rather by a large concentration of wind-infused chakra. With the next horizontal slash Ranto made, Hinata took her chakra-filled hand and grabbed the blade, stopping it completely. What about Ranto now? As she turned her other hand to knock him unconscious, she asked in a sweet, almost flirtatious voice. Ranto ducked under her blow and leapt back to safety, and Hinata felt the chakra blade vanish. I guess I can go full force on you then. You will be the first opponent to live past seeing my blades. Ranto split his hilt and pushed his chakra into them, bringing out his twin blades in the new katana form. Ranto charged forward quickly, slashing with each sword in an unpredictable fashion, also known as crazy, but controlled crazy. Hinata barely avoided each attack until a blast of wind hit her midsection, sending her flying safely through the air. This time, she fully anticipated the attack and recovered quickly, landing softly on the ground. You'll have to do better than that to keep me down, she said. Ranto shoved a lot of chakra into the swords, causing Hinata's eyes to enlarge as she saw how much of it was pulsing inside of them. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. Shugohaki Rokuhuion Sho. Protection of 8 trigrams. 64 hands. Hinata thought. Crap, that's too much chakra, as the blades came at her with full force. Extreme Gale. Rantu's blades came at her, and he smiled when he saw her stance and knew the defense she was executing. The forward slash was completely stopped when Hinata expelled her chakra into a fine web of concentrated energy, and the momentum change was enough to throw Ranta off balance and create the ideal opportunity for Hinata to strike. You are in range. Hake Rokuhuion Sho. 8 trigrams 64 palms. Rantu's blade dispersed as he took a knee from her, closing down his chakra. Yes, I did undervalue you. Ranto coughed up some blood and collapsed face first, and Hinata ran up to him, apologizing profusely as she began to heal his body. I'm sorry Hinata, I should have expected that attack. You are the Hyuga heir, it was my fault. I'm sorry Hinata, I should have expected that attack. You are the Hyuga heir, it was my fault. However, how could you be at fault? None of my attacks should have been known to you. I've witnessed all of those attacks and am aware of what they do, but I'm not really sure how. Hinata grinned at his explanation and completed her recovery, saying, it's exactly like how I knew your name. There, you should be all healed now. If that's the case, why am I unable to move my arms? They hurt so bad. Hinata quickly reactivated the Byakugan and observed the muscles in his arms that had been harmed by her attack exploding out of his back, indicating that she had expended more chakra than was required to close each point. Knowing what she had to do to heal him, Hinata blushed and said, I'm sorry, it looks like I damaged your muscles with my attack. I used too much chakra in them. I could probably fix it if you want me to. Yeah, that sounds fantastic, but tell me why you're blushing. Well, I guess it is because your shirt needs to be off, and since you can't do it, I'll have to remove it. His straightforward reply was, don't worry, I won't tell. Hinata gulped a little and gently tugged at the hem of his shirt, pushing it up as far as it would go, until she had to move his arms upwards, causing a little groan of pain as she did so. She then pulled his shirt off, realizing that her own shredded outer shirt was getting in the way, so she also took it off, leaving her in a thin white t-shirt. Hinata instantly became red and rushed back to him, moving his arms back down by his sides before straddling his waist and sitting down on his body. He's face down. Remember perverts? And saying, it's not like I don't enjoy your little strip show there, but my arms really hurt where they are. The chakra healed the tissues, and the physical stimulation increased the blood flow to the area, speeding up the healing process. She told him, this may tingle a bit Ranto-kun. Before beginning a small healing jutsu, she began massaging his shoulders, easing the pain away with each relaxing second. How long should it take, Hinata? He inquired, feeling completely at ease as she touched him. Why is it still painful? He blushed as he said, no, I just really like it. Normally, it should be finished by now, but it's possible that I hurt you more than I realized. As she continued to massage the Wind Master's back, Hinata thought, no, I definitely won't let this feeling leave me again. They talked into the night until she felt his body settle into a steady rhythm of sleep. We weren't out here that long, were we? I should be getting low on chakra, so why am I not? Hinata's jutsu began to fade, and she fell asleep while lying on the Wind Master's bare back. December 29, 017 AC. Early morning, Konoha. As the sun rose above the horizon and illuminated the village below, it was an exceptionally warm morning. Kiba exclaimed as he left his house to go to the training grounds, hey Akamaru, let's see if Hinata is out training early this morning. We haven't seen her in a while. Kiba ran to Hinata's training location with Akamaru at his side. He was both shocked and incensed by what he saw. When he eventually got there, a half-dressed Hinata was lying on top of this weird guy who was shirtless and attempting to cuddle up to him. Ranto woke up a little when Kiba yelled, hey bastard. How dare you take advantage of Hinata like that? What have you done to her? Ranto responded groggily, shut it dog boy, I'm trying to sleep here. He suddenly became aware that a pressure on his back was making breathing a little more difficult. He was relieved to recall that Hinata had been lying on his back the night before. She muttered, Naruto-kun, as she became slightly aware of his movements. No, I'm sorry sweetie, this is Ranto. Then she tried to nestle closer to his back, saying, it's okay Ranto-kun, you'll do. Kiba exclaimed, disgusted by this, what the hell, hey idiot, they might want to use these training grounds since it's almost 8 in the morning. Whoa, it's already 8. Ranto reaches back as far as he can and begins to shake her gentle arm, saying, hey, Hinata, it's time to wake up angel. I guess it's time to wake up then. In response to his voice, she pleaded, just a little longer, please. Hinata-chan gasped and sprang to her feet, saying, sorry, but some guy and his dog wants to use the training ground we're on. Kiba-kun. She exclaimed, startled. What's up with the guy, Hinata? If you're with a strange guy, won't your father be upset? This is Ranto-kun. He is someone brought in for my arranged marriage, Hinata said, blushing dark red as she realized what she had implied. Actually I could have been caught doing much more with him and father wouldn't have cared, most likely. you'll see him more. It's okay in any case, it was never my concern. I wanted to inquire about your well-being. I'll let the two of you alone. With his shirt back on, Ranta walked up to Hinata and handed over what was left of her shirt, saying, "That isn't necessary, Kiba-kun. We were just leaving, and I'm getting hungry anyways. I think you should go back home." Hinata-chan, Ranto said in a somewhat dejected tone, "Your 9 o'clock will probably be waiting." Hinata turned to him and smiled sweetly. Taking her shirt and putting it on, Hinata says, "As far as I'm concerned, all my appointments have been cancelled. Ranto-kun, would you like to join me for breakfast?" She looks at her ripped clothes and has to say, "Sure Hinata-chan, but you may need a different shirt than that one." "Indeed, let's visit Sakura's home. I want to stay away from those other three for the time being." Hinata took Ranto by the arm and dragged him away towards Sakura's house. Although he wouldn't normally choose to be drugged around the village for his morning workouts, he appeared happy to be drugged by an angel, at least temporarily. "Do you think you could let me know where you're taking me, Angel, so I can get around independently?" "Sorry, Ranto-kun, I just got carried away." Hinata halted and released his arm, saying, "Why do you call me Angel, Ranto-kun?" "That's a good question. You know, it could be that you look as good as one, or it could be that your presence calms me." Hinata was blushing and grinning at his comment when she took his arm and pulled him closer to her goal. "I want to avoid dating losers, so I'm taking you around the village today." "Well, why are you bringing me along if your goal was to stop dating?" As she pushed him along more quickly, she commanded, "I said I wanted to get away from dating losers, now come on. You don't need to drag me, Angel. I can walk." "Oh sorry." Hinata releases his arm with disappointment, but a smile brightens her face as his hand appears in hers and entwines with her fingers. "Now, Angel, can I walk or do I really need to be on drugs? And if you wanted to go faster, you just had to ask." Ranto grabbed her hand tightly and leapt to the nearest rooftop, dragging her up with him. "Lead the way, Angel." Hinata took off, Ranto following, running across the rooftops to Sakura's. They arrived in a matter of seconds, knocked on the door, and Sakura stepped out onto the porch, hastily closing the door behind her in an effort to conceal something. "What a surprise, Hinata. What can I do for you?" Hinata heard the door quickly close. "Isn't he inside there?" With a hint of rage, she asked. "Yes, I did extend an invitation to Sasuke-kun for breakfast. That's what people usually do with their boyfriends." "Well, I think I can tolerate him for a while. All I need is a change of clothes and I don't want to go back to the manor yet." Sakura saw Hinata's hand in a guise at that moment and said, "Okay, I should have just the thing for you. So, Hinata, are you going to introduce him?" The two blushed a little and swiftly let go of each other's hands. "This is Ranto-kun." Sakura, she tried to stop herself from blushing as she told her, "He is my date for the day." Sakura gave Hinata a sharp glare and allowed them to enter the house. When he saw Hinata enter with a man, Sasuke put on his typical act and grinned. "Nice to meet you, Ranto. You guys can come in for a while, but no fighting." Sakura had to use all of her strength to restrain Hinata after she said, "See, I told you that you would get over him, and you did. I'll never be able to move past him. Go screw yourself," she yelled at the Uchiha jerk. "I'm just trying to live some kind of life in accordance with his wishes. Can you stop your girlfriend from killing someone, Ratu?" Ranto stepped in front of the angry girl and held her shoulders firmly while looking into her eyes. "Well, I would, but for some reason, I want to see her bash his face in, but since it might damage your home, I'll try." "Hinata-chan, calm down, Angel. We can leave sooner if you ignore him." His presence seemed to calm her down enough for Sakura to entice her into her room so she could get the clothes, leaving Sasuke and Ranto alone. "Is it Sasuke? You should be quiet around Hinata. In my opinion, I won't let her kill you, but I won't let her cripple you. Even I want to hurt you because of the thoughtless things you said." "That's a joke. Haha, you're no more valuable or strong than she is. What on earth could you do to me?" After hearing the commotion, Sakura and Hinata returned to the room. Hinata peering around the door frame to try to hide herself from view, only to discover Sasuke being held at knife point. Sasuke never even noticed the movement until he felt two sharp edges of chakra pressing up against his neck. He was amazed at his speed and started to perspire when he saw the two chakra swords crossing in front of his neck. "Kun Sasuke." Sakura ran forward, gasping, "Hey asshole! Who gave you the right to enter my home and threaten my visitor? Remember, Hinata is just as fast as I am, so if you want to keep your life, keep your mouth shut around her." Ranto leaned forward and whispered to Sasuke, "I was just answering a challenge." Ranto took the swords away and deactivated them before putting them away again. "My apologies, Sakura-san. It was very unprofessional of me to be that aggressive." Ranto grinned at Hinata, who was hiding behind the door frame. "Are you, Angel?" She nodded before hesitantly stepping outside, wearing tight capri-style pants and a light blue shirt with a low cut. Do you have a jacket or something, Sakura? This seems a little revealing. Sakura glanced at her, then at Rantu's stunned expression as he gazed at Hinata, seeing an evil smile. She chose to pose a question to him. So, Ranto, how do you feel about Hinata's attire? He was still gazing at her form when he was startled out of it by that question. Sakura continued to smile evilly as she grabbed the two and pushed them out the door, saying, You look gorgeous, Hinata-chan. It's settled then, you two have fun now. Sakura rushed back into the house, shutting the door behind her. Hinata felt a little self-conscious about being so exposed, but that quickly vanished when she felt a hand grab hers and a startled expression appear on her face. Ranto grinned at her beaming face. What? Hinata grinned and squeezed his hand, saying, it felt just right. Before they heard what might have been the greatest sound in the world as they moved away from the door. Sasuke, you cocky prick. How many times do I have to tell you not to speak to her? Male whimpering and crashing noises replaced the screaming. I guess she accepted my apology then. Hinata nodded and smiled at Ranto before they left to get breakfast. Following a relatively quiet meal during which they attempted to observe the other without being discovered, Hinata made the decision to take him to the Hokage Tower for his follow-up examination. They were escorted into the office where they discovered Ino, who was her mother, along with a close facsimile. When she saw the two holding hands, Tsunade grinned and said, we have been expecting you, please sit, we'll start momentarily. Why is your mother present, Ino? Hinata inquired curiously. Well, Mom will accompany me into Rantu's head since she is here to assess my jutsu skills. Although she might not possess the Yamanaka ability, no one else in the vicinity is more adept at deciphering subtle mental differences while concealing the fact that she needed a second opinion on the Windmaster's mind. She told her, hopefully we might find something new as well. We're prepared to move forward. Ino, you can go ahead. Tsunade ordered. Ino seated Ranto in a chair and performed her jutsu, focusing on her mother and herself. The filing cabinets in the middle of the room were surrounded by shadowy papers flying in complete chaos, and the main rooms for love, anger, happiness, and sadness were visible, but they were only shadows of what they should have been. At least they made a showing now, but the thing that stood out the most was the enormous and exquisite lavender door at the far corner. Everything went black for a while before shadows began to appear, showing the dark room from before, but something was really off from the last time. What's happening here? This is completely different than the last time I was here, Ino said, without addressing anyone specifically. His mind is trying to heal itself while it is in a lot of turmoil. When they approached the door, they saw a girl sobbing with her head in her knees and embracing herself tightly. Ino thought she looked very familiar, and when they were within a few feet of her, she looked at them with her pale pupilless eyes. I think the cause may be due to whatever that door leads to. Her mother thought. Ino did not respond as she walked towards the door. Hinata? Before her mother took over, Ino gasped. Why are you crying, child? What's wrong? With tears in her eyes, the girl replied. I'm trying to get into my room but it is locked. Why do you claim this is your room? How did you arrive here? As Ino emerged from her astonishment. I don't know how I got here, but the moment I did, all those dark thingies started to go crazy, and then a box appeared in my hands and some guy told me to go to my room but it won't open. Is the box visible to me? Without saying a word, she held up the box, and Ino started to rummage through it, discovering all of the memories of Hinata that Ranto had been experiencing lately. So you say a guy told you to go here? Now, where is he? Ino and her mother jumped when they noticed a dark, shadowy figure staring at them with sharp blue eyes, saying, he is standing behind you. Who are you? Ino inquired of the shadow. His voice was dark and monotone as he answered, I am the keeper. What is the keeper of? Keeper of memories. Why is she here by herself if you are the custodian of memories? The others who resemble her went here, which is why she is here. The shadows are being disturbed simply by her presence here. What does others mean to you? And what shadows are there? Before the shadows arrived, people who resembled her entered the room freely and moved into the large door and the shadow door next to it. I'm doing my best to classify the shadows because I can't remember how everything looks, but I need the doors to open in order to do it correctly. She will be stuck here until the shadow door next to hers opens. So, what exactly are the shadows? I also need to know the name of the room she belongs in, but you haven't responded to that. The memories that turned black when the doors spilled their contents and the majority vanished are represented by the shadows regarding the door. It must open for her to enter the room of love, the room of her soulmate. When did she begin visiting that place? Totally taken aback that someone else had a room like Hinata's, Ino inquired. I don't know because time doesn't exist here, But the shadows weren't there for very long. Ino and her mother regained consciousness groggily minutes after being released. Unfortunately, I must get going and you must leave. The shadow figure thrust his palms forward, throwing the travelers from the mind back into their bodies without canceling the jutsu. Ino whispered, "Ow, that was painful," as she passed out. Ino's mother said, "Painful, yes, his mind is beyond strong, but it wasn't his." This made Hinata feel afraid. "What's wrong, Ino? What is the matter with Ranto-kun?" she yelled, concerned for him. No, but his mind is reacting strangely to your presence," Ino replied. "What are you saying?" "Well, it appears that his mind is attempting to reconstruct itself around the notion that he was acquainted with you prior to losing his memory. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but his mind is racing as he tries to piece together the reason for you. I wouldn't expect him to think deeply for a while, but he should be alright." "Is there anything else?" Tsunade inquired. "There may be, but we need to converse on that before we have an answer." "Very well, you and your mother figure this out and get back to me. By the way things look, you will be staying for a while." The two Yamanagas left the office right away, leaving Tsunade with Hinata and a still unconscious Ranto. "Yes, Hokage-sama." "So, Hinata, it looks like you're going really quickly. Are you certain that this is the course you want to follow?" Without taking her eyes off the unconscious Windmaster, Hinata smiled and responded. "Hokage-sama, I guess so." Knowing the meaning of that statement, Tsunade chose to ask another question. "I don't know why, but I seem to be drawn to him almost like he was someone else." "So, are you certain that you aren't simply substituting Ranto for him?" "I'm not sure if I am or not, but I do know that it doesn't hurt as much when we are together. I'm confident that if he agrees to the marriage, I'll be able to live the kind of life he intended for me, one that is hopefully happy." "Well, I suppose you've already decided you chose the best option out of the four, but there was no competition, was there?" "No, I suppose there wasn't." Ranto began to gradually regain consciousness after Hinata's completion. He grabbed his own head and said, "Whoa, my head feels funny." Hinata said, "Ranto-kun, you're awake." She was obviously pleased. He responded by stating the obvious, which made her laugh. "Yes, I suppose I am. What's so funny, Angel?" Hinata turned to her Wind Master and smiled, and Tsunade nodded. "Come on, Ranto-kun. I have some things I want to show you." "Nothing really, you're just being silly." Much too similar to the way he would act. She shook that thought out of her mind before it could depress her attitude. If it is alright with you, Hokage-sama, I'd like to continue my day." Ranto bowed and excused himself from the Hokage once more. Resisting the urge to call her Ba-chan, they left the office as Ranto involuntarily took Hinata's hand. "Okay, Angel, lead the way." "What do you think of me, Ranto-kun?" After sensing his hand clasp hers, she inquired. He answered too hastily for her liking, "I think you're nice." "Is there anything more, or is that all?" "No, I think nice covers it." Her smile made the Wind Master relax and put his hand back around hers, saying, "I don't know what caused you to lose your memories, but it seems like your actions go against what you say." "Well, I know of a lot of people that think I'm nice, but none of them hold my hand." Ranto looks to his hand and is surprised to see that he is actually holding her hand again. He tries to let go, but she refuses to let go. He says, "I never said you had to let go." As they enjoyed each other's company during lunch and dinner, the remainder of the day passed swiftly. They essentially discussed their missions and anything else that came to mind, but that came to an end as they arrived at the Hyuga Manor after dark. "Don't you think the other guys will be mad at you for hanging out with me for the day, Hinata-chan?" "Yes, that would be a good assumption, but I don't care. I had a good time today with you." "You'll have to go out with them because I'm sure you won't be able to do this again." Making up an excuse is the best we can do to avoid forcing you to spend the same amount of time as the others. "However, I'd prefer not to. I should probably just send the others away now since I had so much fun with you. I know you could pick the winner early, but I don't think I'd make a good choice, so don't be so excited. I feel like the only reason I'm still here is because you might have the key to unlocking my memories. I could only hurt you, so you should really forget about me." "No, I have only felt this way around one other person when I let him out of my life. He never returned alive, so I won't accept it. Even if you do end up using me for your memories, I will still choose you. I will stomach going out with those guys if you promise you will accept my hand in marriage if you are the choice afterwards. Deal?" However, Hinata reluctantly released his hand as they made their way into the manor. "Alright, Angel, if you still feel I could bring you happiness after dating for a while, I will accept. We really shouldn't arrive together to prevent some friction though. Good night, Angel." January 23, 018. AK. Konoha. Hinata endured 3 lecherous dates a day for the next 3 weeks. which left her exhausted and unable to enjoy her final date of the day with the person she truly wanted to be with. She had to stop it today because she couldn't stand it any longer. Hinata knocked to announce her presence as she stood outside her father's study. The current clan head said, "You may enter." Hinata enters the study after opening the door. "Ah, Hinata, what brings you here?" Hiyashi grinned, not because she had made a decision, but rather because his plan was finally coming to pass. "I have come to a decision, father." Although he knew she would lean toward the Wind Master, he was still shocked that she endured his personal torture for this long. He wins in both situations because he was aware that, as an elemental master, his blood would not properly mix with the clan's blood to grant their progeny the bloodline ability. "So who is your choice then?" "The best choice is Ranto." "Very well, everything will be taken care of. You will bring him back here by noon today to finalize the contract." In order to hide her joy, Hinata turned away and hurried out of the study after saying, "Thank you, father." Hiyashi grinned malevolently as he searched for the paperwork to complete the transaction. "No, thank you, Hinata. Now no one will stand in the way of Hanabi becoming the heir, and the council will let the caged bird seal be placed on you." Nobody knew who was selected because by 11 o'clock that day, the other suitors had been taken out of the village at various times. Ranto's possessions were moved into his new room next to Hinata's, where you will remain until they are married. Ranto was obviously against her decision, but it didn't take much convincing to get him to agree. Hiyashi met the two at the door of his study as they approached it. They went into the study, sat at the designated spots, and waited for him to say, "Come in, Hinata, Ranto, we have much to discuss." He took out the scroll for the contract, clearly not giving anyone a chance to protest. "Now here are the terms to the agreement. You will be married in less than a year, and Hinata must have produced a powerful heir by her 23rd birthday or she will be stripped of her title and the caged bird seal will be placed on her and being officially divorced, leaving you free, Ranto." "Any questions?" "Good." They both knew that the deal seemed a little off, but who were they to argue? This was the only way to get married in the family, so they signed each line with their blood, binding them to the terms of the contract. Until the contract expires, by either one of you dying or the time running out, neither of you can marry since any other contract will reject your blood. Hiyashi was a little irritated when Hinata swiftly pricked her finger with a kunai, signed her name, and handed it to Ranto, who pricked his finger and proceeded to write his name, but all that was written was a tiny spiral. "What's the deal? You can't even write your own name." Hiyashi conceded that he was correct and put the scroll in his desk drawer. "No, that isn't it. I have no memory of myself, so I just wrote the first symbol I could think of. Besides, the contract really only needs our blood to be active. Now I suggest you two spend a great deal of time together, but it would be frowned upon if you were pregnant before your wedding, so try to keep it proper." Overwhelmed by their newfound freedom, the couple hurried out of the room to make the most of their remaining time together before passing away from poor circulation from all of it rushing to their faces. Morning, April 19, 18 a.m. About 3 months have passed since Ranto and Hinata finalized their engagement plans. Since they would be spending the rest of their lives together and had nearly a year to remain somewhat single, they made the decision to take their relationship very slowly. The majority of their time together was spent holding hands and conversing, but Hinata desired a little more focus. Although it annoyed Hinata a little that Ranto didn't seem to have many feelings and that affection wasn't expressed the way she desired, there was still plenty of time to change that. Ino and her mother were unable to solve the Wind Master's mental puzzle. The idea that Ranto didn't have a complete soul and thus clung to Hinata's, forming the strange bond, was the only thing that remotely addressed their dilemma. I love that word. But they quickly rejected that notion because it was impossible to split a soul. They found themselves back where they had begun, with nothing but dead ends that always led to a particular dead shinobi, despite their extensive research. Konoha was about to enter their busiest season for missions, as they always do, but this year was especially busy because the missions were coming in more quickly than they were being finished. The Hyuga heiress was called in from her temporary inactive duty because Tsunade needed all physically fit ninjas to finish missions. "Hinata, I'm sorry, but I must pull you off of the inactive duty roster. I need every ninja of this village to complete the missions this season since we really need the money to get the village going strong. Therefore, Hyuga Hinata, you are to take this document," hands it to her, "to the grass country. Upon reaching your destination you will be met by a jonin that will take you to your target where you will exchange documents and take the new one to wherever you were designated to go. After reaching that destination you will receive yet another document and bring it back here. This will be an upper rank mission due to the unknown location of the second and third meetings." Hokage-sama, how long will I be gone?" When the time frame was mentioned, Hinata's expression fell, and Tsunade noticed it with a smile. "You should be gone for about a month. Since you are still a chunin, you will need to pick a person to accompany you of about jonin level, and if you can keep your mind on the mission, you can pick anyone you want." Instantly her smile returned. Hinata left the office right away to prepare for the mission, saying, "Thank you Hokage-sama, we will leave before noon today." Before vanishing into her room to pack, Hinata hurried back to the manor and told her father and Ranto about the mission. When Hinata discovered her mission pack, she opened it and took out some bright orange clothes, which made her smile vanish. "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but if I want the life you wanted for me, I must let you go with a sigh." Hinata removed the journal from her desk, wrapped it in the orange clothes, put it in a box, and slid it onto the top shelf of her closet. "I will always love you, but I must move on." After wiping a tear from her cheek and completing her packing, Hinata said, "Goodbye Naruto-kun." Before departing the manor at around 11 o'clock, Hinata completed packing and had a meeting with her fiancé. They decided to have a quick first day, so they rushed out of the gates and through Konoha in the direction of their first destination, grass country. Although there wasn't much time for conversation given their speed, they made it to the grass country border in roughly 5 days. As the mission mentioned, they encountered a very forgettable Jonin when they reached the border. About a day later, they reached a big house after being led by the silent Jonin through several villages. After being escorted into a spacious office, they encountered an elderly man who appeared to be in his 40s. The man produced 2 scrolls without even addressing the two. One contained the document, the other contained directions on where to take it. He gave them to Hinata and waved them away. The Jonin escort vanished after they were led out of the house once more, leaving them on their own in the street. Hinata opened the scroll and took in the information, saying, "That was weird. Where are we heading off to now, Angel?" She replied, "We're going to Lightning Country." Ranto didn't see her dejected expression. They continued to travel, but as they neared their second destination, Ranto did observe a shift in her disposition. It would be an understatement to say that she was worried. She was obviously afraid. The inquisitive Wind Master questioned, "What has you so worried, Angel?" Hinata jumped in terror and almost punched him in the face when she heard his voice break the stillness. She spat out, I'm sorry," then she felt his hands firmly grasp hers. "Please tell me what has you frightened all of a sudden, Hinata-chan." Hinata sobbed until she could hardly move. "Well, I guess it's just that I had a bad experience with Cloud Nins back when I was 3. I was taken from my room in the Hyuga Manor. Their intention was to acquire the Byakugan, whether it was to remove my eyes or turn me into a breeding slave." Hinata forced a tiny smile but kept sobbing. "I'm sorry, Hinata-chan, but as long as I am here, no one will touch you and live." Rantu made the decision to camp for the night since she was aware that she was not in a fit state to continue with the exception of personal matters. Hinata never left his touch after that. However, over the course of the following few days, the situation progressively worsened until Hinata could only sleep for a short while being securely held in Rantu's arms. Rantu once sat in the moonlight of the thick forest where they were camping and watched Hinata sleep soundly in his arms. The sound of a waterfall in the distance created a surreal atmosphere that made the Wind Master think. Between the sounds of the waterfall and the moonlight highlighting your lovely face, "Hinata, I feel like I should remember something about you, but I'm having trouble putting it in my head." He let sleep take over and dreamed that a moonlit girl was spinning around in the water, but he couldn't see who it was because of the light's angle. "Sleep well, Angel. I know you are tied to me somehow and I will figure it out eventually." Since Rantu was now waking up to a lovely scent, his brief dream actually lasted the whole night. "Rantu-kun, you awake?" "Yeah, but what smells so good?" They swiftly consumed their breakfast and readied themselves for the push to Lighting Country. "Well, since it is morning, we call it breakfast. Hurry up and eat. If we hurry we can get this leg of the journey over and we can get the hell out of this area." They arrived at their destination in just 2 hours, but they had to wait for their contact. After an hour, a man was finally visible wearing a black trench coat with 2 hilts raised above each shoulder and the sheaths crossing mid-back, representing 2 large katana-like blades. The dark-haired man walked toward them. He eyed Hinata eerily and said, "Ah, the Konoha Nins, I see you have brought what I came for." She stepped forward and handed over the scroll. Nodding, the man pocketed the scroll and said, "Oh, so this is how my employer pulled it off. However, this scroll would not be required." "What do you mean?" inquired Rantu. "Well, you see, I was sent to retrieve an item and store it in this special scroll, but when I actually saw the specific item, I believe my employer will like the whole object much better." With a hint of agitation, Hinata said, "If you will, sir, we have a mission to complete. If you would give us our last object, we can return to Konoha." Hinata jumped back with Rantu as they got ready for battle, which made the Cloud Nin laugh. "You seem quite nervous around here, little Hyuga, but you won't be leaving quite yet since I haven't completed my objective yet. You see, little girl, your mission was a setup. I've been sent for one thing, your bloodline. I've been trained for the past 14 years specifically for this task. I was ordered to remove your eyes and place them in the stasis scroll, but I thought that even one with your eyes removed can still produce offspring having the ability, and you won't need to see to partake in that." Hinata sighed at his remark that completely Ranta as well. "Hinata, I know you don't want to hear this, but you can't fight." She was interrupted, saying, "What? I can't just stand here. I am not weak, I can." "Yes, I know you are far from weak, but he has had specific training to combat the Hyuga style, so you can't stand a chance alone. Besides, if there is any way I can protect you from harm, I will." Turning toward the Cloud Nin, "I will never let you touch her." Ranta rushed the man, launching a barrage of punches and kicks, all of which his opponent deflected. The man took out his two swords and prepared to strike, saying, "Is that all you got, kid? You are an insult. I have been training longer than you have been talking, so just die already. Oh, and I'll be sure to take good care of your little lady." He then took out his hilt and used chakra to form his wind sword, which he named Tempest. "Well, I see you want to step it up a notch already. It'll make this battle much shorter. Enough talking." Ranta lunged forward, slashing upward diagonally, but two chakra-reinforced blades stopped it. Ranta dispersed the chakra in his sword and divided the hilt while channeling chakra back into them to create the twin swords. "Well, I guess you are better than I thought. You can use chakra to reinforce your blades. You will be the third person alive to see the true power of my swords. Note that I am too lazy to find every mention of this number and make them match, so some may say 2-3 people have seen the twin swords while others may say 4. Deal with it. Changing them all is just too troublesome." As the fight broke out, Hinata watched with concern. Each attack was countered and blocked, only to have the counter countered and blocked once more. Despite the insane speed at which they were fighting, neither of them was coming close to hitting the other. "I am aware of your strength, but this battle could really go either way. Redu-kun, perhaps my assistance could change the outcome of the fight." Hinata clung to that idea and used her Byakugan to look for a chance to assist. She saw what she wanted and tried to strike, but it was a feint, and she was struck in the shoulder by a steel blade that sliced deeply into her pale skin, sending her flying into a tree and sagging to the ground. Hinata ran to kick the assailant and leapt to his future wife's side. He turned her over and saw a battered girl with blood dripping from the corner of her mouth. "Hinata, speak to me, are you okay?" he asked. "Hinata, why didn't you stay away? I never wanted to see you like this again." "Wait, again?" Putting the thought aside, he felt a strong pulse in her and was relieved when her eyes opened. "I've never seen her like this, but it seems too familiar." When Ranta saw her blood on the ground, he impulsively ran his fingers through it and clenched them into a fist. "Hinata, stay here. You are in no condition to fight anymore." Ranta rushed at his opponent and almost severed his head, but instead he only managed to cut off a few hairs. "I give you my word, I will defeat him." The enemy said, "You won't be able to keep your word, boy." Ranta had just finished saying, "No, I will, because I never go back on my words," when he collapsed to his knees, clutching his head and yelling in agony. "Ranta-kun, what's wrong?" Hinata cried out as she gradually sat up and became conscious. This was the ideal moment for the Cloud Ninja to complete his mission, so he charged the wounded Hyuga. "I guess I really only need your eyes, and since your boyfriend is occupied, I'll have them before your dead body hits the ground. Now die." He launched himself into a quick kill. Although Hinata was too hurt to stop the attack, she closed her eyes and waited to be consumed by death. Blood spattered her face and she heard the sickening sound of flesh being cut, but she was oblivious to the pain. The face of the gray-eyed, tan-haired Wind Master appeared as she slowly opened her eyes. When Hinata noticed a sword blade protruding from his chest, she gave him a brief smile before it vanished. With the sword still protruding from his back, Ranta turned to face his opponent and said, "Shh, don't say anything, my love. Your love kept me alive over 10 years ago, which is why I call you Angel. You truly are my angel, as you always watched over me, giving me strength. Now it is time to repay the favor." His swords were in front of him, held in a X shape, and he said, "You will die here. Even if it kills me, I will protect her." His chakra flared dangerously in Tempest, Ultimate Retribution, as it was all pushed into the sword for his attack, causing the blades to separate from the hilt while maintaining their shape and fly at the unwary foe. To defend the attack, the Cloud Nin raised his final sword and used all the chakra he had left to strengthen it, but the attack sliced right through the blade. In addition to cutting through the blade, it also cut through 30 feet of forest and the enemy ninja. Upon witnessing his triumph, Ranta collapsed onto his side and began to cough up copious amounts of blood. Ignoring her wounds, Hinata rushed to his side and activated the Byakugan to check the severity of his injuries. "Ranta-kun. No, even with Tsunade, There is no healing for this, his heart is also cut and his lung is pierced. She turned off her eyes and started crying. Hinata shook her head in defiance until his warm hands held her face motionless. Hinata, please stop crying for a moment, I know I'm dying, so I need to tell you some things before I go. She noticed something deepening in his blue-gray eyes, which were no longer just gray. Don't ask questions, I must hurry before I go, my body must be laid to rest with the body of your true love, only then will you be able to keep your love strong for it to find the one whole person to love you and never leave. I want to thank you for being the key to my memories. He was compelled to cough up pus. Please take my sword. When you need protection the most, it will call forth the power to keep you safe. Keep it with you always. He starts to cough up blood as his breathing sinks. Rantu-kun, what did you mean by 10 years ago? Did your memories really return? As Rantu lay there motionless, his breathing ceased and he said, kind of, my angel, I knew you over 10 years ago. My love for you can't be killed. I love you, Hinata. She screamed to the sky, damn it. Why can't I have someone? Must I always be alone? As she collapsed beside him, crying uncontrollably because she had lost 2 loves in her life and had never imagined that she could love anyone. Hinata-sama, what happened here? She asked, gazing up at the person in front of her with tears in her eyes. Neji, where did you come from? Neji left no room for objections when he ordered one of his team members to tend to Hinata's wounds so she could gather her belongings and they could all depart for Konoha. We were chasing a lead-on AS-class enemy under the employ of the Cloud for seeking the Byakugan. My team was only to get data since he was extremely powerful and was not to be engaged at all costs. That pile of flesh over there was the target and I am surprised anyone survived this fight. Gather your stuff, I'll carry him. May 9018 Act Konoha. Neji's ninja team took 3 days to bring Hinata and Rantu's body back to Konoha. Hinata sank into a deep depression during that period and didn't talk or eat during the return journey, but things were going to get worse for the young Hyuga. As soon as they got back, a branch member of the clan greeted them and told them that Hiashi had ordered them to the Hyuga courtyard. Hinata and Neji left the rest of the group behind and headed back to the Hyuga manor, stopping in front of the head of the clan, the entire clan council, and a branch member carrying something roughly the size of a person wrapped in a white sheet. With a menacing tone, Hiashi said, Hinata, what is the meaning of this? He gestured to the branch member, and the bundle fell to the ground. Hinata almost passed away when she saw the object drop because of the grief and sorrow she experienced upon seeing Naruto's well-preserved, orange-clad body. Hinata collapsed to the ground there, sobbing bitterly. Disgusted by her behavior, Hiashi commanded, damn it Hinata, stand up. And pushed her to stand. Hiashi turned his face away from her in disgust and turned to Neji, saying, throw that body with the other to be burned. First you dishonor our clan by bringing this worthless body into our crypt and then you let your fiancé die because you were too weak to protect yourself. You are an utter disappointment. No father, cried Hinata, who had at last found her voice. My status in this clan and my love for both of them entitles them a spot in the crypt. Hinata is backhanded by Hiashi, who yells, shut up you insolent brat, and drives her to the ground. Hiashi stormed out with the council as some branch members came out to carry out his order. You are not a daughter of mine, so you have no status in the clan. We will meet again in a month to decide your final punishment. Now, burn the bodies. Neji turned away, not wanting to see Hinata's eyes wet, and gently placed the body down. The 2 bodies were arbitrarily thrown into a pile and burned with a Kaden jutsu by the branch members. The bodies burned gradually until the fire abruptly grew exponentially, sending flames 20 feet into the air. You couldn't even see what was burning because of how intense the light was. An even brighter light pulsed outward at that moment, but no one noticed. After a while, the fire subsided, leaving only a smoldering heap of ashes and a sobbing Hyuga before she passed out from emotional exhaustion. Neji arrived an hour later and escorted Hinata to her room, where she spent the remainder of the night sleeping. Shortly after, in an unidentified place, he frantically tried to figure out what had happened, grabbing his head and screaming in agony until he passed out from the stress. What in the hell? How did I get here? Where is here? He asked himself a few hours later. When realization dawned on him, he woke up groggily. How could I have been so careless? I've lost so many years of my life and hurt so many people. To top it all off, I have all these feelings that are just overwhelming now, but I guess they were always there. Konoha, I've caused so much pain and mostly to her. I must come back to fix all of this the best I can. He fled at a pace that was unfamiliar to the Yondaime. Began to run toward Konoha. He discovered he had run in the wrong direction. After almost a week he became frustrated and made the decision to try again while still considering all the potential applications of his newly acquired knowledge of wind element jutsu. AK Konoha, June 9, 018. Since returning from her mission a month ago, the distraught Hinata has not been seen by anyone. Even though some members wouldn't mind if she did, the Hyuga clan decided to lock her in her room and remove all sharp objects due to her now declining mental health in order to prevent her from hurting herself. The young girl's not-so-shy wailing kept the entire manor awake every night, preventing many people from getting any sleep. She was reduced to a thin, sickly shell of a woman after going almost a month without eating or sleeping much. After observing Hinata's appearance, a distraught Neji escorted her to the clan council meeting today in order to punish her. Hiyashi was standing in the middle, his personal guards facing her as she entered the spacious council room that was encircled by the council. Knowing there was nothing he could do, Neji left her there because he couldn't bear to see what was coming. Hinata, the council and I have come to a unanimous decision. You will be stripped from the main branch and the curse seal will be placed upon you. If you happen to survive this painful seal, you will then be placed in the lowest class we have in the branch family. You will no longer be a ninja, you will be a servant to the main family for whatever is seen fit. Also, you will not be allowed outside of the manor ever again. What do you have to say for yourself? Hinata took out Rantu's chakra weapon and held it in her hands, trying to pour chakra into it, but all she received was a faint pulse of energy. You may no longer see me as your daughter, and I may not be allowed to be a ninja, and I may even be allowed to die today, but I know that they saw me as a strong person. You can try to do all those things, but as long as I hold this hilt, I know I won't be harmed. Hiyashi gestured to one of his guards, who approached her slowly and punched her in the face, breaking her nose as it began to bleed. You are delusional. You do not have the ability to wield that weapon, let alone stop any of us. With another signal, the guard kicked her ribs violently, breaking half of them and causing her to scream in agony. You will not threaten a member of the main branch again. Servant will be your only name, and you will have no rights. Hinata gritted her teeth and pushed her excessively slender body to her feet, saying, that should be enough to show you that nothing can protect you, so accept your fate. With another silent signal, a kick flew outward, catching her legs and sending her to the ground, where she could hardly move, likely due to her nearly broken legs. You are right about one thing, Hiyashi, you are not my father, and you are an idiot. We control the direction of our fate. Her mother said. Hiyashi came closer, preparing the hand signals for the seal placement. Now that she was stationary, the room's door was blown off its hinges with a loud explosion just before he made contact with her forehead. A lone man was standing guard in front of Hinata's wounded body after the dust had settled. The young man wore a black leather jacket that was left open to reveal a bright orange t-shirt and a small crystalline necklace around his neck. He was also wearing black pants. His blonde hair hung in his face, obscuring his deep sapphire eyes as he glared at Hiyashi and the council. Then he focused on the one on the floor, ignoring the rest of the room. Pale lavender eyes met his, and he said, I'm sorry Hinata, my angel, I messed it all up, can you forgive me? She turned away and was startled to feel her dream cling to her shoulders. I'm sorry, I can't as much as I want to. I know it is all a dream. The real Naruto died years ago. Now leave me in peace. I'm sorry I caused you all this pain, but I am real, my love. But how? I can feel you. I'm not imagining this. Hinata's face fell when she realized she had grown apart from him and had fallen in love with Rantu, the dead wind master. I was stupid, and I messed up something. We'll talk about it later, but right now we need to get you out of here. Naruto interrupted her before she could finish, saying, I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, I don't deserve your love. After you died, I fell in love with another and… Hinata, don't apologize, you are special, we are special. Hinata, there was times in the past where I felt like taking my life, but before I could actually follow through, I would feel the calming presence of someone. It was about 10 years ago when I felt it first. From that point on, not a day went by without that feeling unless I left the village on a mission. Just by you watching me, you kept me alive, which is why you are my angel. You saved my life numerous times, and I have only done it once, so I am still in your debt. Naruto reached out a hand to her. Hinata nearly gave the sword to him, but the information she heard left her perplexed, so she just clung to the weapon, refusing to let it go. I'm sure you still haven't figured it all out, but I need the sword. Hinata gasped when Naruto revealed the sword's name, saying, Hinata, your clan is very angry and the sword should be able to help if I can get it to function correctly. So please hand me, Tempest. Since only 3 people were ever aware of the sword's name, Naruto was one of the 3, but if you counted them, it would have been 4. Her eyes widened with comprehension, and she voluntarily relinquished the sword. Hyuga Hiyashi, clan head of the Hyuga, by not upholding your end of a contract sealed in blood, by Konoha law, the penalty is death, what say you? Naruto turned to face the room, still reeling from the shock of witnessing someone meddle, but he was unknown. I have no idea what you are talking about, boy. I have not broken any contract, but you have interfered with clan business, therefore we can do anything within our walls, so you are sentenced to death. Besides, who are you to have a say in anything? Replied Hiyashi. Shut your pompous ass. I have every right to be here on my fiance's behalf. You have broken my marriage contract set by you 5 months ago, by denying Hinata her birthright as heir. Check your contract, it was signed in blood with my symbol, the spiral. Now you have two choices, die now, or resign as leader. These are my terms. Who do you think you are? And why would you even want that weak mess to marry you anyways? Hinata has a name, and she is far from weak. If I hear you say otherwise again, I won't hesitate to kill you. With his Byakugan flaring, he demanded, you in what army? Now tell me who you are. He formed his favorite hand sign and produced 30 clones, each of whom was staring down every member in the room. Well, if you have to know, I was an orphan shunned by my village for something I had no control over, but I will become the Hokage and surpass the man who laid this burden upon me. I am none other than the jailer in the jail for the 9-tailed fox demon known as Kyuubi. I am Uzumaki Naruto, and I am my own army. The real Naruto put the sword hilt on his waist after not needing it and picked up Hinata, who was now unconscious. There was no attempt to stop him because all 30 clones now held a blue sphere in their right hands, aimed at every person in the room. Hiyashi, I am taking Hinata from here. If you choose to challenge my claim to her hand in marriage, come to the Hokage Tower in 3 hours. The clones vanished from existence as soon as he left the manor, leaving some Hyuga furious still holding his valuable cargo. Naruto ran in 5 minutes to reach the Hokage Tower. The Anbu guards stopped them as they ran up the stairs to her office. The Hokage is speaking with Kakashi-san and Jiraiya-sama and specifically requested to not be disturbed under any circumstances. You should leave now. The Anbu watched in disbelief as he took a deep breath. Really? I'm the exception to that rule. The guards dispersed, searching for a hiding place in case the short-tempered Hokage unleashed her fury on the intruder. Baa-chan. Quit talking to those two perverted bastards and get your sake-loving ass out here. The door was thrown open and smashed into the wall after mumbled profanity was heard. Of all the stupid, who the hell dares to interrupt an insult? Naruto shoved her away and entered the office, saying, you need to heal Hinata now. Questions later. Ba-chan. Hey, Ero-senin, Kakashi-sensei, get that crap off the desk, now. The day he returned, as Naruto was being watched by his two senseis, Hinata was placed on the now clean desk after waking up from her reverie. Tsunade approached her desk and almost burst into tears upon seeing the dark-haired girl's battered and undernourished body. Tsunade inquired, what happened to her? As she began to recover from her wounds. He stroked Hinata's dead mess of hair and said, it's all my fault, Tsunade. I was the one that caused her so much pain. How was any of this your fault? Naruto was now caressing her cheek without thinking until he noticed her eyes open and staring at him. She loved me, but I was too dense to realize it, and then I kind of died causing her much pain. It took her a while, but she managed to find love again in Ranta, but she was hurt even worse that time when I died saving her life. Losing two people you love like that in one lifetime is too much for one person to handle. She closed her eyes to avoid looking at him as her face darkened once more. Naruto-kun, how? You were alive, but I saw you burn, and how do you know about Ranta? I thought I figured it out, but I can't. I'm sorry I caused you so much pain, and to answer your question, Hinata, I messed up the jutsu I wrote about, again, but it went worse this time and it kind of divided my soul into 3 parts. I kept the demon in this body, but my hyper-loud half went to 1, while the parts 1 didn't know of myself, like my affinity for wind and many feelings, went to another. Basically saying, I kind of am Ranta. I have his feelings, power and knowledge mixed with my own, so I really am neither Naruto or Ranta as you know them, but yet I am. I know it is confusing, but I'll tell you all more later, since I have much to talk about on that topic. Naruto looked at his two senseis. It appeared that he was still alive. I really don't want to sound mean by this, but I believe Hinata-chan needs some good food and a nice shower. I doubt she has had either in a while. She said, embarrassed by her weakness. You're right, Naruto-kun, I haven't taken care of myself. I really just wanted to die. Tsunade nodded and escorted Hinata out of the room to get her the food and shower she sorely needed. I know, Hinata, and I'm sorry I never wanted to cause you this pain. Unfortunately, we have some other matters to deal with. Since I basically am Rantu, that means I am still obligated to marry you now. Hiyashi will be here in about 2.5 hours to challenge my claim to you, and we'll need everything we have to get through this. Naruto let out a tired sigh and collapsed into one of the comfortable chairs as the two perverted senseis continued to stare, unable to comprehend that the two deceased individuals were actually the only ones still alive in front of them. Naruto decided to think about what he should do until his senseis returned because he was no longer amused by them. When Tsunade and Hinata returned 45 minutes later, they were astonished to find Naruto silent and even meditating. The room's attention was drawn back to her by her appearance, but Naruto's gaze shifted from the Hokage to Hinata. Her hair appeared to have returned to its typical shine, but her face was far too thin. The worst thing was that the clothes she usually wore were too big on her, revealing just how much weight she had lost. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he saw her in this state. Tsunade was grinning as she sat at her desk until she noticed the tears in the girl's eyes. As she passed Naruto, Hinata was staring at the ground and utterly ignoring him, believing that he was still a dream or that she was being tricked. She squealed loudly as she was suddenly grabbed by the wrist and pulled sideways into his lap. Her mind is messed up, so she will be second-guessing everything for a while. As he buried his face in the bend of her neck and let his tears fall, Naruto put his arms around her slender body and drew her near. The words, "Naruto-kun," came out of her eyes as she felt his tender touch. "I'm sorry Hinata-chan, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I never wanted to hurt you. Can you ever forgive me?" She gave the command, "Shut up." When Naruto heard those words, his head jerked up. He looked into her dazzling, pale eyes incredulously to confirm that it was her. "What?" Hinata wrapped her arms around his neck, drawing him in and kissing him, causing his eyes to enlarge in reaction. "Sometimes you talk too much, Naruto-kun." It would be an understatement to say that he was taken aback, but Naruto was always able to improvise. At the last minute he held her closer while he closed his eyes and savored the moment. Time seemed to stop for them both as they savored each other's affection, warmth, and even the taste of their lips. They would have remained there indefinitely, but they had to leave because their lung capacity had other ideas. They exchanged joyful glances. "So does that mean you forgive me?" asked he. "No, not yet, Naruto-kun," Hinata asked with a slightly menacing smile. "Well then, what was that for?" "That was for my own enjoyment," he pouted, making Hinata laugh, saying, "That's mean, Hinata-chan. So what do I have to do to earn your forgiveness, angel?" She blushed and told him, "That's easy, my love. You just need to make sure you marry me like Rantu. You promised." He whispered, especially for the wedding night, in front of her ear, causing almost all of her blood to flow to her face. "Your blush is still so cute, Hinata-chan, and of course I will still marry you. That is what I'm here for, but before then we will have to get you extremely healthy." She chose to conceal her embarrassment by giving him another passionate kiss while she was still conscious. Tsunade interrupted, saying, "Ahem, if you two are done, I believe there are some things we need to discuss." When the two awkwardly parted ways, Hinata tried to stand up, but Naruto restrained her, and she quickly gave in and curled up in his arms. Naruto declared, "Well, before I explain everything, I need a certain paper shredded." The four people there stared at him as if he were crazy, but one of them was covering his face with perspiration. All eyes turned to the sweating white-haired man as he said, "Ero Sennin, I will not have my future wife in your books. Now hand it over." Hinata, however, was giving Naruto a tender look after hearing the only four-letter word she wanted to hear. Wife. Jiraiya pulled his notebook out of his shirt, tore out a page, and handed over his research while wearing a guilty expression. After folding the page, Naruto put it in his pocket. "Ero Sennin," he extended his hand in anticipation, "all copies, including the one in your hair." As he took a notebook out of his hair, another from his sleeve, another from a pocket of his pants, another from his shirt, and one from his sandal, Jiraiya looked embarrassed. The amount of research Jiraiya carried around astounded everyone. After reading it, Naruto smiled, folded one up, and gave it to Hinata, who promptly pocketed it. He then used a tiny Kaden jutsu to burn the remaining pages and erased all references to Hinata from the books. Naruto provided them with the answer to the question before it was posed. "Well, you see, Ero Sennin created a jutsu that copies his single notebook into 7 others, so even if he loses one or has it stolen or destroyed, then he will still have his research." Before he smelled something, Jiraiya thought, the brat is still as dense as ever. He has never found there was a 7th, and he never bothers to count." He looked down and said, "Hey, do you guys smell something burning?" "Oh, shit, hot. He went in circles around the office as his last notebook burned in his pants, Making everyone in the room tremble with laughter, Tsunade decided to assist and extinguish the fire using a small water jutsu in the shape of a bucket, but the research was now completely destroyed. He turned serious and began to speak once more. Hey, Ero-Sennin, I've changed in the past few years. I can think now as well as count. So, I suppose you would like me to explain myself. Kakashi interrupted, saying, that would be good, but I am still glad to see you are still essentially you. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, you were so quiet. I almost forgot you were here. Why were you so quiet? Naruto said loudly. His response was, just enjoying the show, I guess. Since he had all of their attention, Naruto simply shrugged it off and began his story. Well, basically I was trying to create a new jutsu based on the Kage Bushin. I was attempting to make stronger versions of them so they could take much more damage, but I ran into many problems along the way. I refined it to a point where I could make 2 clones capable of generating their own chakra, but one looked correct while the other looked a bit faded. I just ignored that since I got what I wanted. Man, I was an idiot for not looking into that. Anyways, one of the interesting parts was when I dispelled them. I would get my chakra back as well, which was cool. Now another downside was the clones has to be dispelled manually, meaning I needed to touch them, or they had to touch each other, to release them, or I wouldn't get my chakra back. Now when I tried to give each of them more chakra to deal with, about half of what I had, I would then find myself wandering aimlessly, not remembering what happened. He paused his story at that moment to reposition Hinata. Since she was slipping off his lap, he grabbed her firmly without glancing at her, pushing her up on his lap and making her squeak loudly because he was grabbing her behind. She simply gazed dreamily into his eyes as he apologized. Sorry Hinata, I probably should have touched you like that. Hinata gasped when she realized she had said, it's alright Naruto-kun, you can touch me anywhere you want. She then found a nice deep red color for her face to turn and buried it in Naruto's chest to conceal herself. Tsunade appeared surprised at her level of forwardness, while Kakashi and Jiraiya giggled like young girls. Read himself, Naruto chose to go on with the story while absently caressing Hinata's back. Anyways, I never got to finish the testing of it before Sasuke came near, which got me the idea to create a clone to actually die by his hand so he could unlock his power and leave the snake bastard. I knew the clone would need a lot of power, so I decided to make a single clone and give it all the chakra I could spare, but things went weird when I tried that. I made 2 clones, one about half my normal strength, who was perceived as me, and one with almost no strength, known as Ranta, while I ended up sucked into some weird place where I couldn't move or do anything but talk with the fox and see some of the surroundings. In the years I was trapped there, we came up with a good reason for what happened. Soothing tone of his voice stroking of her back managed to quickly put Hinata to fall asleep. Seeing her sleeping so soundly, Naruto simply grinned and carried on. We figured the Kage Bushin was actually a form of dimensional manipulation. Every clone making jutsu, like the Mitsu Bushin, uses less chakra and is just as solid as the Kage Bushin, but they can't transfer memories like Kage Bushin can. Another commonality between clone jutsu is the user must use a medium for them, like water. This is where we thought that if you needed a source for them, you would also need a source for the Kage Bushins, and that is where the dimension comes in. Everything points to needing a small dimensional rift into a certain dimension for each clone. When the chakra is poured through the rift to form the clone, it pulls a shadow, or something like it, into our dimension to take the form of the clone, and the dimension rift remains open, letting the memories to come back through when it is dispelled. That explains the smoke when one is destroyed, where there might be a problem, as if there are other things living in that dimension that could get out when a rift is created. I was trapped in that shadow dimension and the creatures seemed harmless, but I can't be sure. Well, anyways, just making the clones won't let these things out, but what I was doing was forcing more chakra through the rift, making it large enough for something to enter, especially the last time. The only way I could get out of that dimension was if my clones touched each other after dying, and luckily the bodies were kept around by Hinata so it could happen. As a bonus, I got all the chakra that was gained by the clones when they dispelled, meaning I have about twice the chakra, and extensive knowledge of the wind element, which has been quite interesting if it is combined with a few other jutsus. Even though that is a plus, the negatives outweigh it by way too much. First, I caused so much pain to those that thought I died, and 2, you actually think you died, and let me tell you, dying is more painful than the injuries that caused it. Between dying twice and the memories of Ranta in his life, I have become a much different person from the maturity it brought, making me a lot less of an idiot. Hinata had just woken up from a brief nap when she unexpectedly planted a deep kiss on Naruto, shocking everyone in the room. However, since she wasn't completely awake, it would get better. She ran her fingers through his hair and continued kissing him. At last, she separated herself and gave him a desirous look. Though his eyes were almost out of his head, Hinata moved in and gave him another kiss, saying, "Maybe we should take this to our bedroom." Her eyes opened fully, and she buried her head in his chest once more. Hinata, are you awake?" she asked. Buried in his clothing, her voice was muffled as she said, "Oh God, I did it again, didn't I?" "Shish, don't worry about it, Angel, you've been under too much stress already." The white-haired pervert grinned, "You know, kid, we could always leave you two alone." Ero Senin, shut up, we have more important things to deal with. Hiyashi should be here within the next 45 minutes, or so, to challenge my contract to marry Hinata, which was signed by Ranta, but it was basically my blood and it was signed using the symbol I use, so it is essentially signed by me. They were about to object when they noticed Tsunade crack her knuckles for a little emphasis, so let's just say they made the decision to leave on their own initiative this time. Well, I guess that will make things easier. Kakashi, Jiraiya, you can go, but don't speak of Naruto yet, we need a plan to break the news. Okay Ba-chan, this is really going to suck, but I think we need to move to a larger room since I'm sure the entire Hyuga Council will want to be here. Yeah, it is true, your mind works better now, you would have never thought of that before, laughed Tsunade.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.